see dead people.
Put it on that beat, go.
Hey, mustard on the beat, ho, depot, any rap nigga, he a freak throw, man down, call her Amber Lambs, tell him breathe, bro, nail a nigga to the cross, he walk around like Tizo. What's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton? The industry can hate me, fuck them all and they mama. How many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I'm finna pass on this body, I'm John Stockton. Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walking down whole time, I know he got some hoe on him. Pull on him, extort shit, bully the flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. To any bitch that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. They tell me Chubb's the only one that get your hand-me-downs. And party at the party playing with his nose now. And Baca got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boys, certified pedophiles. Wop, 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 that fuck him up. Wop, 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 I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bitch, ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. They not like us, they not like us, they not like us. They not like us, they not like us, they not like us. You think the Bay gon' let you disrespect Pop, nigga? I think that Oakland show gon' be your last stop, nigga. They cold foul, I don't know why you still pretending. What is the owl? Bird niggas and bird bitches, go. The audience not dumb, shape the stories how you want. Hey Drake, they're not slow. Rabbit hole is still deep, I can go further, I promise. Ain't there some B-rest that's for bitching? You Malibu most wanted, ain't no law boy, you ball boy, fish Gatorade or something.
Alright, this is not the normal intro.
You niggas will get a wedgie, you flipped over your boxes.
This is not going to be the normal intro. Don't worry. I just had to shout out Compton really quick. So back to the regularly scheduled program.
There's no introduction that really is needed here. I have a special guest, as you can see. Mark Hamill has decided to join us on this wonderful Friday, and I am really excited to turn it over to Mr. Hamill. Here we go.
Okay, how many of you had Mark Hamill will lead the press briefing on your bingo card? Hands? Yeah, me either. And look, I just got to meet the president. He gave me these aviator glasses. Oh, yeah. I love the merch. Love it all. But listen, I just wanted to say I was honored to be asked to come to the White House to meet the president, the most legislatively successful president in my lifetime. And, you know, I don't have to go through the list, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, all of that, inflation, 15 million jobs. Look, it's all good. I mean, I was really thrilled to meet the entire staff because, you know, it's not just one person. It's like a composite endeavor. And all these people, my goodness, I mean, I have no idea. I had no idea just what went into what is on his plate on a daily basis. So that's pretty much it. I'm open to questions, although no Star Wars questions, please. But I want to say once again how grateful I am. And it just shows you that one person can be so influential and so positive in our lives. And again, thank you so much. And Peter Baker, I loved your book. Yes.
Wow. Thank you, Mark, for being here. What did you ask? What did you talk about with the president?
Well, first of all, I only expected to be there for like 5 minutes. He showed us all these photographs, and it was really amazing to me because I was invited to the Carter White House, and I came, and then I came to the Obama White House, but I never was invited into the Oval Office, and it was a large gathering. So this one was really extra special.
All right, sir.
So yes,
If I can bring up Star Wars too, sir.
well, I called him Mr. President. He said, "You can call me Joe," and I said, "Can I call you Joe B1 Kenobi?"
No, that's a good joke. I guess that's good.
He liked that. But listen, I'm not really here to dominate. I have to turn it back over to our wonderful press secretary, Corinne Jean-Pierre. So thank you all so much. All right, thank you.
Right, she's great. She's great. Welcome to Straight Outta Politics podcast. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ. I thought it was kind of cool to start out, since I was starting out with something light like that Mara intro. Beat.
Really, there's no introduction that really is needed.
But
Here I have a special guest,
I
as
thought
you
I would
can
follow it
see.
up with a lighter
Mark
story before we
Hamill.
get into some of our serious stories today. And this is definitely light, like lightheaded maybe. But here is Luke Skywalker deciding to stump for, I guess, every Democrat, since what he said he was there for. What did he say? Did he say Clinton? I know he said Obama. He said another president. Maybe it was Clinton. So he's deciding to continue what he always does, which is stomp for the Democratic Party. But what's different is I can't recall. Maybe I missed it. I can't recall a celebrity actually coming into the press briefing. If any of you do, please correct me. And I don't remember seeing like Rock, or The Rock, I should say, The Rock in the press room. Am I tripping, or does somebody remember another celebrity? If you do, put it in the chat. I'll put it up if I see it. There we go. So I is this like what part are we on Star Wars? Like number 9 or something like that? 8? So is part 8 stomping for the Empire? Is that what it's going to be? But that was Mark Hamill. But anyway, there's actually a story that I wanted to quickly read with this. Everyone that clowned J. Cole for apologizing to Kendrick needs to apologize to him immediately. I'm actually debating doing the segment, not today, doing the segment on the whole J. Cole, Drake, I guess he's called BBL Drake now. So BBL Drake and Kung Fu Kenny, or K-Dot Kendrick Lamar. And I'm collecting all of the footage for the segment, and it's a lot of people apologizing on TikTok. They're showing their original video with them calling them all these names, and then they're like, "Oh, Kendrick, J. Cole, we apologize." So to your point, Buckaroo or Buckeye fan 05, thank you for the super chat. Yes, I actually have seen a lot of that apologizing on TikTok. That is, to get really the most recent stuff on this stuff, you got to go to TikTok. So all the young people, as they say, the children. But let's get back to the main quick little intro story. This is not a serious sort of segment. I wanted to start out fun. So you have Mark Hamill, who is Luke Skywalker, and it's always shocks your consciousness when you see a actor or celebrity who plays a part in a show or movie, and you have grown up or have seen that a long time. So it's only natural for for us to think that they're similar to that, because that's who we know them to be. We don't know the actual person. We know the character who we think is we know that person. So when you meet, let's say Michael J. Fox. No, let's say somebody younger. Let's say you just pick a person, Taylor Swift. Let's say for whatever reason you thought Taylor Swift was a nice person, all of what you see in public. And then you met her in person and she was the complete opposite. In fact, she was kind of a piece of shit. You get what I'm saying? Like she was kind of that way. That's sort of what is happening with a lot of people in Luke Skywalker, aka Mark Hamill. It's the same sort of like, man, I wish you never came out in politics. I would just see you as Luke Skywalker. I wouldn't see you as a mindless propagandist. But there's actually a article that I want to bring up to this, and it's a brief article on the Hill. This inspired me with the quick little intro segment, and that's this here. Can Hollywood save Biden? So is this sort of an acknowledgement or an announcement that they're going to be using celebrities for a lot of what they do? Is that what this is about? Let's read just a little bit. Again, this is just our intro story. Make sure you hit that like button. 800 is always the target on YouTube. Let's see where everybody. Yeah, we got a lot of people watching on Twitter. Between Nick's stream and the mainstream, there's over 500 people. We got over 200 people on YouTube. Can't see the number on Twitch, but Twitch and Facebook is also streaming. So welcome everybody on Twitter. All right, so let's read this story. No, I won't enlarge it. Can I close this? We're going to create something. If I close this. Okay, cool. President Biden's election campaign is increasingly leaning on a longtime ally to play a starring role and help him pull off a win in November. Hollywood. Let me just kind of restate this sentence, but maybe in a way that some of us would write it. President Biden's re-election campaign is increasingly leaning on longtime ally and expert propagandist to play a starring role and help him pull off a win in November. Hollywood. You see that? That's better, right? Should probably read all of our articles like this. But let's read it the way it's written first. For a record-breaking campaign fundraising weekend in Los Angeles, to a hour-long interview with famed XM radio host Howard Stern, to an appearance on a podcast hosted by actor Sean Hayes, Will Arnett, and Jason Bateman, the commander-in-chief is seemingly pulling out all these stops on the entertainment industry circuit. So remember what I said before? So we're seeing all these people, all these celebrities stomp for him. So let's take Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes. I mean, I remember the reaction to the Howard Stern interview with him, which wasn't that long ago, a week or two ago or so. And I remember the reaction was like cringe. Like people never seen Howard Stern be so cringe with a guest. And it was terrible. So that's what I reported on. I mean, it's not anything I would do a segment on, but that's what I heard. But let's continue with the article. The move to court Hollywood. Where am I? Sorry, everybody. The move to court Hollywood and get a public star-studded show of support from some of the country's biggest names could be by design. Really could be by design. You see how this is corporate media. You see how corporate media participates in the sham. Last year, Biden's camp named former DreamWorks CEO Jeffrey Katzenberg, the same guy, people, who donated to TYT, one of the top Democratic fundraisers, as one of the campaign's national co-chairs. Now, think about that. Biden's national co-chair gave something like, is it $20 million to TYT, Cenk Uygur? And Cenk is trying to say that didn't influence him. Cenk is trying to tell us that that money from a co-chair of the freaking Biden campaign doesn't have expectations of $20 million. That's what they're trying to convince you of. Absurd. Let's continue. Quote, Democrats have always had power play relationships with Hollywood that have helped raise money and generate excitement. It's part of how we do it. It's part of the sauce, said Democratic strategist Jamal Simmons, who have worked with the presidential, who works on the Biden presidential campaign. Now, I'm sorry, who has worked on presidential campaigns. This is just a strategist. I misread. Now, Simmons, I think that's how you said, Simmons or Simons, said Katzenberg's involvement in the camp speaks to the ability to target one of the main power centers, Tinseltown. Why are you labeling Jeffrey Katzenberg as Tinseltown and not Wall Street? That's suspicious. Quote, he has those fundraising connections and he has relationships with celebrities. So having an unnamed staffer calling a celebrity is very different than having Jeffrey Katzenberg pick up the phone and say, pick up the phone, he said. Biden swings through LA in December, reportedly raised 15 million for his campaign. Katzenberg, the founding partner of is it Windsor? Did anybody? That's the acronym. I don't know what it stands for, but maybe it's Windsor. But it's his company has described it as the most campaign cash raised in a single visit to the City of Angels by any president or the White House hopeful. Now, think about this. Joe Biden is breaking all these fundraising records, and it's still not enough. Joe Biden is spending already more than twice as much as Donald Trump. And then, have you seen the polls? Anyway, I don't want to. I was just about to interject the Social Democrat in this, but let's save that for their segment. But I can kind of briefly speak on it. But Hollywood and progressive Democrats, aka Social Democrats, aka liberals, these are the stools to the propaganda chair to re-election of Joe Biden. Without like sort of the Bernie Sanders industrial complex in Hollywood, there's no way Biden can even be where he is right now in the polls. They are integral with money, that's Hollywood, and they're integral with influence, that's Hollywood, and it's also the Bernie Sanders industrial complex. But what to me is going to be very interesting to watch is them trying to thread this needle that Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils. As Joe Biden sicks the police state on protesters. The same protesters that voted uncommitted. Don't you think there's a good amount of people who voted uncommitted? They're in the same camps. So I don't understand this strategy of Joe Biden, but Hollywood is continuing to play their part. You see here, Mark Hamill, aka Luke Skywalker, just breaking Star Wars fans' hearts as he shields for genocide. Because get this, anyone who's coming out saying Joe Biden is shielding genocide. Because you can say all you want that Donald Trump has the same policy and he expresses it. But what you can't say is Donald Trump is actually carrying out a genocide right now. That's what you can't say. And no one's telling, we're in RBN, and I know no one in RBN, no one here, no one in our camp is saying to go out and vote for Donald Trump. We're saying leave the duopoly. That's what we're saying. Let's now get to the next. Let me actually bring up the graphic, and then I'll kind of go through some of the stories we're going to be covering today. I put up this graphic when we played that Kendrick Lamar K. Kung Fu Kenny diss track, and I think I'm going to use it as an intro to my show. But it's just going to be just the 30 seconds part where he says something. He shouts out Compton, and he's not really talking about Drake yet, and because it makes it to where it fits as an intro. I'll play it right now. So this will be the new intro for my solo shows. I hope to remember to do this. This is my new intro. It's the first 26 seconds of this song. Let's listen.
Psst, I see dead people.
Put it on that beat. Nope.
Hey, mustard on the beat, ho, Depot, any rat nigga, he a freak throw, man down, call her Amber Lambs, tell him breathe, bro, nail a nigga to the cross, he walk around like Tizo. What's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton?
That's the reason why I want to play it. Try to see Compton. I'm Compton J. That's why I put up a graphic. But this is another 7 seconds. I'm sorry, I should have waited till the end. It's another 7 seconds before it actually. It's after his first verse.
Industry can hate me, fuck them all and they mama. How many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I'm finna pass on this body, I'm John Stockton. Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching.
And then it would stop there. It'd be, hey, welcome to Straight Out of Politics. I'm your host, and that's how I'm gonna be doing my intros. I'm gonna polish it up a little bit. That's just a first draft of how it's gonna be. I'm gonna have it nicely done to where it's just the sound too. It's not gonna be the graphic. It's gonna be just the sound. So I'm working on it. Give me some time to do that. But let's go to Twitter and let's get ready to get started with the show. And here are the topics here, bookmarked. But let's bring up the graphic, and I'll kind of explain with the graphic. I'll explain what the topics and how they're going to interconnect here. So of course, the headline topic is Biden torches lesser evil, and that has to do with Joe Biden and his repression, his suppression, his sicking the police state on the anti-genocide protesters and using propaganda to label them as anti-Semitic. It's just preposterous. You know what I mean? It's like if there's 100 people in the room, one person in the corner is maybe yelling something. He may not be a plant. Let's just say he's not a plant. He or she is not a plant, or the person, I should say, not just he or she, but the human is not a plant, and they are anti-Semitic. They're focusing on the one person when there's 99 others who's saying, yeah, that person's ridiculous. We're just against the genocide. That's what they want to do, and that's how they're trying to frame it. We're also going to talk about, that's Chris Hayes there. We're going to talk about Chris Hayes being booted, being fired from the Real News Network. This is a real blow to the Real News Network. I mean, I expect it to go fully Democratic shield, because for so long, Max Alvarez over at the Real News Network, he's been able to sort of hover between the Bernie Sanders industrial complex and a little more radicals, maybe not RBN, but slightly less radical than RBN. He's been able to hover in that space because he doesn't really chime in on the Bernie and the AO. He doesn't really chime in. He just stays out of it. So it kind of gives the appearance he's above it. Like, this is not really, he doesn't come out and promote them or anything like that. He's just with the worker. But once we listen to the interview of Chris does with George Galloway, you'll see he'll answer some of the questions we've had. So we're going to be covering that. George Galloway interview with Chris Hayes. This is a long stream today. So what I'm doing now is doing one stream longer for the week and just have those clips diced up for the week. That's what I'm attempting to do until I can get settled in my new move. Believe it or not, we're still kind of trying to get settled in our place, still unpacking. It's a lot going on. So yeah. So today will be a long show, at least a 3-hour show. Will be today. So put this back up. Now, why Bernie's on there, he's up there to represent the topic when we get to elected progressive Democrats are so useless to people in Gaza. And we're going to cover a couple of the interviews he's done. Mehdi Hassan has been on Majority Report. Mehdi Hassan and Bernie Sanders interview for that segment. So, and then let me just read some of the other segments that's not pictured on the graphic. Let me see here. We covered the Luke Skywalker. Kshama Sawant demands the UAW rescind Biden endorsement. We'll cover that tweet. And like I said, Chris Hayes talks being fired with George Galloway. Then we're going to get to the weaponization of U.S. media to attack people against genocide. That's probably the longest one because we have some good footage to cover on that. And then we have elected Democrats are so useless to the people in Gaza. I said that already, but I'm just reading them one after another here. Joe Biden torches lesser evil, and and then we're gonna start with this one here. Breaking Hamas agrees to ceasefire, and this is actually the one we're gonna be starting with. Let's put that down and go to this gentleman and have him kind of break the news. We're not going to listen to the whole 7 minutes. We're just going to listen to the first maybe 30 seconds to break this news. Actually, I'm going to listen to a little more. I'm going to get something to drink because I keep coughing. So let's let him kind of give us some of the foundational information about this ceasefire that Hamas has agreed to. So, excuse me. So let's listen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. It was just reported that Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire that was negotiated by Qatar and Egypt. They have agreed to the terms. They've been in negotiations now for a couple of days or for a few days. And they have now reportedly accepted this ceasefire offer negotiated by Qatar and Egypt. I want you to notice what's going on here, what has been going on. Last week, the Israelis made a fake ceasefire offer that was ridiculous and laughable, and said they tried to make it an ultimatum and say, if they don't accept this by Wednesday, we're going to attack Rafah. And Anthony Blinken was going around saying, this is basically the last offer. If you don't take this, we wash our hands of it, and Israel can do whatever they need to do, basically. And the only thing that they could do was to try to fake it, to try to bluff and to pressure Hamas into believing that this is the final offer, take it or leave it. But everyone knows you're not in a position to negotiate. Everyone can see what's going on, what the global consensus is, what the international pressure has been, the protests on the campuses in the United States and across Europe and so on, the financial damage that's being done through the boycotts and whatnot, and not to mention the coordination by BRICS and the Arab states, and by China with the meetings with Hamas and with Fatah and so on. So everyone knows that it doesn't matter what negotiations you people do, what offers you people come up with. No one has to take that seriously, because the serious negotiations are being done in your absence. And we will come to a decision about what is acceptable. And Hamas is dealing with us. Hamas is dealing with BRICS. Hamas is dealing with Egypt and Qatar. And China is involved in that. And Saudi Arabia is involved in that. And this is where the deal is going to be made. not between America, Israel, and Hamas. No, Israel has no cards left to play. That's why they've been talking about Rafah all this time. For more than a month, they've been saying they're going to attack Rafah. And now, when Hamas basically ignored their Wednesday ultimatum, they said you have to make the decision by Wednesday. Wednesday came and went. Last Wednesday. Thursday came and went. Friday came and went. Saturday came and went. Sunday came and went. And now we're into Monday. And they've come up with a deal that they have accepted. No one paid attention to your offer. No one paid attention to your ultimatum, because you don't even have that kind of muscle to try to pressure anyone. No one takes that seriously. So they've come up with an offer now. They've come up with a ceasefire agreement, and Israel is going to have to take it or leave it. But now, because of what they've been doing in terms of Rafah, with the evacuation plans and the limited strikes that they've been conducting today against Rafah, they're in a position where they can say, we forced them. We won. They accepted the ceasefire. They can just say the ceasefire and pretend that they won, that they forced Hamas into accepting their ceasefire offer. But obviously that's not what happened. Everyone ignored what you came up with, and they came up with their own, and they're agreeing to it, and they're offering it to you now. And if you have any sense, you will accept that ceasefire offer, and you can try to play it off like it was a win, that it's been as a result of your pressure, of Israeli pressure, and so on. But everyone knows that's not it at all. I mean, when the United States refused to veto the ceasefire in Ramadan, and then when they also refused to back Israel in saying that they can't, if you conduct a retaliatory strike against Iran for their retaliatory strike against you, we're not going to back you up. We don't support that. Israel went to Germany and sought support from Germany, because they saw that they're not going to get the support that they want from the United States. So they went to Germany. And now even Germany is saying, along with everyone else in the world, don't attack Rafah. The White House is saying, don't attack Rafah. Germany is saying it. Europe is saying it. Everyone in the world is warning them not to attack Rafah. So that's a card that you can't play. If they attack Rafah, that's Netanyahu shooting himself in the head. And more than that, it's Zionism shooting itself in the head completely.
And I think what he's speaking to right here is like Joe Biden and the empire. Joe Biden, who's the mascot of the empire. They know that the massacre that's going to come out of any sort of attack in Rafah, it's going to be compounding starvation, compounding already. So we know, or Nick and I have talked about how the official numbers are in between 30 and 40,000. But we know that once this is all said and done, we've already surpassed 100,000 people dead. We've already know we already know that. So, and look at the damage that has done internationally, worldwide, to the idea of Zionism. And Zionism for the United States empire just represents, they don't care by what means they have a military outpost in the Middle East. They don't care by what means. Right now, they're just using Zionism as the vehicle to ensure that. It could be something else. But what the empire, via Joe Biden, understands is that, or Biden administration understands is that, because it's really Anthony Blinken, is that this is going to be catastrophic. It'll be terrible for the concept of Zionism, which puts in jeopardy their military base. So that's the reason why, or it doesn't put in jeopardy like there's going to be end. It puts in jeopardy meaning harder to remain, harder to maintain, because now people are saying this needs to end. Like this terror state of Israel needs to end. So I might come back to the rest of this video. 435. Okay, 435 is where we left off. But I do want to read a couple of headlines. This one's from the Associated Press right here. Breaking: Hamas announces it has accepted an Egyptian Qatari proposal for a ceasefire. So I'm actually going to do another search because I found this a few hours ago. There might be an update. So let me just do another search to get any that's my teapot going off, to get any information. Actually, let me put this back up and play this video. And I'll get my tea so that buzzing does not continue. Let's listen to a little bit more of this while I get my tea off the counter.
Zionism itself is going to shoot itself in the head if they attack Rafah, especially after you now have Hamas agreeing to a ceasefire agreement that was negotiated by Qatar and Egypt. How are you going to attack them now? Even though Netanyahu said, with or without an agreement, we're going to attack Rafah. That was one of the dumbest things that man ever said in his whole political career of saying dumb things. Because the whole point was that you're supposed to use the attack on Rafah as leverage to get what you want in an agreement. And then when you say that you're going to attack either way, then you completely nullify that as leverage. It was one of the dumbest things that man ever said. So now it could be over. It could be over because they can see that they don't have the support. I mean, even now, it was reported that the United States is suspending the transfer of ammunition to Israel. And that's on that in my opinion, is because they're going to have to report to the Congress about the usage of the ammunition and weapons that they send to Israel. They have to give a report to the Congress to certify and to prove that none of this is being used in contradiction to international law, international humanitarian law.
That is true. Now let's go to what I was going to do, which is get the latest article. Let's because I'm quite sure there's been an update. I don't want to give away the information that I already know what Israel has said, but let's see if there's any updates here. Okay, so doesn't look like any new updates, so I'll just continue with my regular scheduled articles and show. All right, so we'll continue with this. We're going to read this article in just a second, but first, let's look at some reaction to this. Here's Nina Turner. This is Nina Turner saying, Israeli media, and this is the part I didn't want to give away, but Israeli media is reporting Israel will not agree to a ceasefire. We've heard for months that this will all end if Hamas surrenders. What now? Well, this is not technically a surrender ceasefire. Where does the U.S. go from here? There must be no more weapons sent to Israel. Simply inexcusable. Now, I just thought of this. If something is inexcusable, how do you turn around and support what we're acknowledging is inexcusable? Just a question to pose. Now, so we're going to read this article too, or a little bit. This is just a little bit of each that we're going to read. And this one is from, how do you say it? Haaretz? I think that's how you say it. Hamas accepts Gaza ceasefire deal. Israeli officials reject prospect of war ending. So it's basically the same thing as they reject the ceasefire, right? So actually, let's bring up that one first. And we will take this down, bring that one up. Haaretz, where is it? It's right here. Here is the article we will read a little bit about. Oh, actually, sorry. Let me put it up here again. All right. Let's close this one. I got too many things open. 1 second, everybody. I got too much stuff open here. Yeah. All right. So let's read a little bit of this article. I think this is the. Make sure both of these. Yeah, this doesn't include. Okay, so we will not cover the AP article. We'll just cover this one here because this has the update which Israel is responding. So, report: Hamas accepts Gaza ceasefire deal. Israeli officials reject prospects of war ending. Now, they could be playing with the words here instead of just saying Israel rejects ceasefire. Instead of, how clearly the first sentence is Hamas accepts Gaza ceasefire, it could just say Israel rejects, Israel accepts. Why using the different wording, war ending instead of ceasefire? Because you're trying to make a distinction in the headline? Is that what you're trying to do? But let's read. According to reports, Hamas has guaranteed by the U.S. for a full Israeli withdrawal from. Oops, let's take this away. Hell? Sounds good another time. No, how about never? According to the report, Hamas has guaranteed by the U.S. for a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and that Israel forces will not continue fighting once the hostages are released. An Israeli official told Haaretz, I think that's how you say it, that, quote, Israel will not under no circumstance agree to end the war as part of a deal and is determined to enter Rafah. Oh, I read the comments. We're not going to read the comments. Right, yeah, we're not going to read the comments. Let's, and I have another article. There's a reason why I wanted to just read this one, because this is ad blocked or account blocked, and I'm not going to subscribe and give them any of my information. But for the details, we can read the other article. It's not much detail. It's just an announcement of the ceasefire deal. That's all. It's not much. Actually, let me bring up a video here. There was a video I got some of the information from, and it was from CNN. And let's see if they have an updated version. If they do, that actually lists what's in the ceasefire. Yeah, let's see if they have an updated version. This one says this is a Wolf Blitzer, and let's bring up what Blitzer. With the remaining part of the story, then we'll close out and move on. So let's listen. This is Wolf Blitzer. And understand Wolf Blitzer is a Zionist. I think he used to be part of AIPAC. I think he was actually in some capacity working for them or a consultant or something like that. So, of course, he's not biased, right? But let's listen how they're reporting on corporate news about this and if they have any updates as far as Israel.
Breaking news in the Middle East. Hamas has announced it has agreed to a ceasefire agreement proposed by Egypt and Qatar. We're waiting to see if Israel will accept the deal as well. Beth Sanner is a former deputy director of national intelligence for us. She's joining us on the phone. So what's your reaction? Beth, let me just read to you a little bit from the statement that Hamas released. The statement said that Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the political bureau of Hamas, quote, made a phone call to the Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani and to the Egyptian Minister of Intelligence, Mr. Abbas Kamal, and informed them of Hamas's agreement to their proposal regarding a ceasefire agreement. What's your reaction, Beth?
This person's on the phone.
Well, I think that first we have to hold our breath here, but I do think that the Israelis are likely to sign on, since this is the same terms, as far as we know, to what they had signed on earlier. So I'm actually pretty hopeful. I think that the military...
Now, this is a discrepancy, because we just read the headline and a little bit in the subheadline from Haaretz, where it clearly says the Israeli official saying that's not going to happen. And we can see it in the bombings that they're doing, in the I mean, not say bombings, but their campaign, their military campaign. It's different things they're doing. But let's listen some more. Now, she's saying the terms were the same. We still don't know if they're going to list it. I watched maybe 4 minutes of this. Let's see.
Military pressure and this idea that the Rafah operation was about to go forward may have made the difference.
The last framework proposal that we know about, Beth, had the release of 20 to 33 Israeli hostages over several.
You hear how they talk about it like they're not sure if it's the same. The way she answered the question was, well, I would assume they would say yes, because I would assume that this is the same terms. It seems like it's the same terms. She said something to that effect, and then the way he frames it too, they're very unsure of what the details of this is. They're very unsure if it's the same details as the last one.
Several weeks in exchange for a temporary ceasefire and the release of Palestinian prisoners being held by Israel. And that was supposed to result in a restoration of sustainable calm, during which the remaining hostages, captive Israeli soldiers, and the bodies of hostages would also be exchanged for the release of more Palestinian prisoners. That was an earlier proposal that was clearly discussed with both Qatar and Egypt. If that is the plan right now, and if Hamas has agreed to that, that would be a huge development.
An absolutely huge development. And I think that, part of the issue here is that Yahya Sinwar, who is, as far as we know, still holed up in southern Gaza, and the political leadership, Haniyeh, who is the one who said publicly that they were a go, they have trouble communicating. It's hard for them to do that, but also they're not completely on the same page, and they don't have the same interests in some ways, given that Sinwar, is potentially staring down the barrel of a gun. And
now, of course, we got to acknowledge that this was speculation, and this is right after the news dropped. And this is let me lay this idea on you. Tell me what you think. What do you think? Because you see what's happening with the military campaign from the IDF, like what they're doing. They're doing some evacuations. So do you think Hamas decided to come out publicly and say, hey, we want a ceasefire as a way of framing what the IDF is going to do? It's like they're not forced. It's like, no. Hamas is saying a ceasefire. But maybe Hamas knows that the IDF is going to continue. So this is just a way of like knowing that they're going to reject this, obviously. Like you think Hamas has that sort of forward thinking to be like, okay, this is not anything they're going to agree with, but let's come out and say we agree with this. And let's come out right when they are publicly preparing to go into Rafah, which is going to make them seem like bloodthirsty, because they're saying, hey, we're waving a white flag saying ceasefire, or white flag is surrender, but saying ceasefire. But you guys are continuing with this military campaign. And this can't be good for the Joe Biden administration if Israel declines it. As Haaretz is reporting, let me actually put that. Actually, let's finish a little bit more of this, because actually some good information in here, besides them being wrong about their speculation on what Israel would do.
And also the party who wants to walk away from this and survive. So, it could be a very big deal. And I think that this delay may have been part of the discussion and trying to hear back from Sinwar inside of Gaza.
Beth, stand by. I want to go to Jeremy Diamond. He's joining us live from Jerusalem right now. Jeremy, has there been any reaction from the Israeli government to what the Hamas has just announced?
Wolf, there has not yet. And so we are applying a lot of caveats to this news that is just
So again, they are applying now a lot of caveats to this. Now she was just a guest, so she was just giving her opinion, not necessarily reporting that Israel's going to do that. That was just her opinion. He's the quote unquote reporter, and he's saying there hasn't been word. Now all of this is before the article that just came out. Let me look at how long ago was that article by. Wait a minute here. What's today? I don't know why. Oh, I guess I gotta sign in for him to even see the date. God dang, what kind of shit? But anyway, let's or time. I was looking for the time. Let's listen to his reporting.
Just breaking at this hour, and that is, Wolf, that we have now heard from Hamas in a statement that they posted to their Telegram channel saying that they have agreed to the proposal regarding a ceasefire agreement. Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas's political leader, speaking to the Qatari prime minister, as well as the Egyptian intelligence chief, to relay that message. But as you said, Wolf, we have yet to hear from the Israeli government officially. We have yet to hear from the Americans, from the Egyptians, from the Qataris. And so we do have to caveat this news, which does carry with it quite a bit of promise and hope here. Hope, of course, for the hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza who have endured unspeakable horrors over 7 months of war, as well as for the families of those hostages who remain captive in Gaza, who have hoped and prayed for the day that they will get to hold their loved ones in their arms once again. But what we do know, Wolf, is that there has been an Egyptian framework on the table over the course of the last week, which officials on all sides had a lot of hope that it could potentially bring these two sides together, in particular because Israel did make several key concessions, including allowing the unrestricted return of Palestinians to northern Gaza as part of this latest framework, something that they had resisted for some time and had been a major sticking point. This framework agreement that was on the table last week would see the release of some 20 to 33 Israeli hostages over several weeks of a ceasefire, and then ultimately leading to a longer-term ceasefire, perhaps a one-year ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Israel had not agreed to every point in this framework, but it did have significant input in this framework as it was then presented to Hamas. We've watched, Wolf, over the last few days as that optimism around those negotiations had quickly soured. It appeared that Hamas was sticking to its demand that an end to the war altogether, that Israel commit to that as part of this agreement, something that Israel has refused to do. But now, hours after the Israeli military began dropping evacuation leaflets, Hamas now putting in a statement hours later that they have agreed to this initial proposal. We don't know whether that.
Okay, so I got some clarity here. So the first article I read, headline article, that's actually, so there's a couple of proposals here. When she mentioned something about a second proposal, somebody said something in the segment. I was like, wait a minute, let me make sure. So that article is for a different proposal. And so bear with me. And that was May 4th. So that was 2 days ago. So that's another way to kind of, I was able to locate the date. So now I have a article that was just published a few hours ago that I'm going to bring up, and we can talk a little bit more about the latest update. So Israel is quote unquote examining this new, because I mean the reporting is so kind of sketchy, but because they're not really saying if it's new and why they're examining if it's the same one. They obviously are examining because it must be different, right? So the reporting is not exact right now, but we'll read what NPR has right now. There's a bunch of other ones. I just picked NPR. I saw CNN. I saw NBC News, but I just picked NPR, and it says a Gaza ceasefire deal hangs in the balance as Israel begins striking Eastern Rafah. Tel Aviv, Israel. A Gaza ceasefire deal is hanging in the balance as Israel began striking targets in Eastern Rafah hours after Hamas said it had accepted a proposal from Egypt and Qatar. Israel's government said the proposal is far from Israel's necessary requirements and said it's pushing ahead with a military operation in southern Gaza city of Rafah, where earlier Monday it had ordered the evacuation of tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians. Quote, the war cabinet unanimously decided that Israel continues the operation in Rafah to exert military pressure on Hamas in order to promote the release of our hostages and other goals of our war, said a statement from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So that's sort of the latest. It's still a developing story, so there could be some updates. There will be some updates. There will be some clarifications on what the deal details are. It just seems like the corporate media, we saw Wolf Blitzer, and we're reading some of these articles. They don't have exact details yet. I guess they're waiting to hear. But that's it for the breaking story. Let's get into some of our other news here, and I think I'll do it this way. I'll just go back to Twitter from here. So let's get into some of our other stories and our other presentations here. But that wasn't a story that was just inserted because it broke right before the show. That wasn't originally planned. The Hamas accepts deal. That was not an originally planned story. So let's read a couple of these here that might be part of this segment. Let's see. So before we close this Hamas ceasefire segment, let's read a little bit of these super chats and see if they're related. This one from a Biden 71. Thank you for the super sticker. And then we have Sean Brock. One's in the chat. If you want Rome to drop some revolutionary drink industry bars on that Metro beat, I was thinking of doing the same thing. Yeah, we should do something on that, or at least Rome. And so he's saying that vote ones in the chat if you want Rome to drop some lyrics on the Metro BBL Drizzy song, the BBL beat song. So that one wasn't related to the story, but I think this one is, and this is ARJ 1997. I don't believe the ceasefire until the Zionist state stops its operation in the Strip. They are not trustworthy. I believe Hamas is trying to show the Zionist state as liars in the eyes of the public. That's what I was kind of leaning towards when I was saying earlier, like maybe Hamas is just trying to prove something, how they're not going to, exactly how you're expressing it here. And are you guys having to type Hamas that way in the chat? It doesn't let you type Hamas regularly? The freaking censorship in the United States is amazing. But let's get to our next story here. Let's go to our bookmarks, and let's cover the Chris Hayes story. So let's cover the Chris Hayes story and get some reaction to what happened to Chris Hayes. And if you didn't know, Chris Hayes was let go by the Real News Network, and immediately he had tweeted out about it. And let's put that tweet up now. And here it is. I'll read it. And I think we've covered this on the channel already, but just in order to get to the George Galloway story, just to give a little background to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. And this is Chris Hayes' tweet for those that are just listening. I was just informed by Max Alvarez, the editor-in-chief at the Real News Network, and I just added that they will no longer run my show. The reason for the cancellation, he said, is that my critiques of Biden, especially from the genocide for the genocide in Gaza jeopardizes his nonprofit status. My last show with Dennis Kucinich, who is running as a independent for Congress in Ohio, was removed from the site. And the reason they signed Chris Hedges because he wrote this. Now, because his account is not always ran by him. When he signs his name, that means he actually wrote this tweet. So let's just go to a couple of reactions. Here is Aaron Monte. I just saw him, and Danny Haifong and Anya. We'll read the three of these people. Sorry to hear this, Chris. Your show is a dose of much needed sanity, and your loyal audience will surely follow you to wherever it lands next. If critiquing Biden jeopardizes nonprofit status, that suggests that such status is given or taken away in an arbitrary and capricious manner based on the whims of those in power. That's the only way your critiques of somebody can affect that. What does that have to do with my nonprofit? Danny Haifon, this is awful, Chris. Your work is essential. We have to elevate and hold each other up in these times. Anya says, tremendous loss for them. And maybe Aaron, for the graphic for this clip, put Aaron on there, put Danny on there, and put Anya with Chris. I think that'll be a good graphic. Then let's get some other reaction. But before we get the other reaction, let's see what Real News, because they had to come out and make the announcement. They were gonna, and they got trashed as they should in the comments. So this is the Real News Network, and then we'll get to some. Nick also did a short hotspot video on it. We're gonna cover that. And then we'll get to the George Galloway interview. We're not going to listen to the whole interview. We're only going to listen to the part about him being fired, because they also talk about Israel, and we can cover that part of the segment in a different stream. But let's read what the Real News Network says or said in their announcement of this, and I'll blow this up a little bit for my sake. I write to you, and it's using the word I, so obviously this is Max. I write to confirm that the Real News Network will unfortunately no longer be able to produce and co-publish the Chris Hedges report. All past episodes produced by the Real News Network are freely available on the Real News Network and Chris's Substack, and Chris has full rights to publish all other recorded and as yet unpublished episodes. For the past 2 years, the Real News Network non-monetary agreement with Chris entailed producing the Chris Hedges report for his independent Substack and the Real News Network. In exchange for each party, including Chris himself, having full publishing rights to the show, throughout the duration of that contract, Chris has not been able has not been an employee of the Real News Network. His income from the show has derived and will continue to derive from Substack, and the Real News Network has no intentions or ability to censor or suppress the show, nor to prevent Chris from continuing to produce the show. Chris has assured us and his audience that the show will continue. We are incredibly proud of the work we've done together. Not proud enough to keep him, because you're talking about past work. This work that you're saying you're proud of is the reason you're removing him. We are incredibly proud of the work we've done together with Chris over the past 2 years, and the episodes of the Chris Hedges report we produce together will remain on the Real News Network site, YouTube channel, and on Substack. Now, didn't Chris say the episode of Dennis Kucinich was removed? Didn't he say that in his tweet? And then he goes on to say, as editor-in-chief of the Real News Network, this difficult decision was mine alone, and it was a decision I made after exhausting all options to avoid it. And I've had Max Alvarez on. We had a pleasant interview. He seemed like a cool person. He and I both, I believe, understand that I'm to his left, he's to my right. But we still had a conversation because we were talking about Palestinian reporter who was killed, Rafat. And he knew Rafat, and I brought him on to kind of talk about the murder of Rafat. And we had a good conversation about that. We didn't go into any other sort of politics, but this is terrible. And I would say it to his face if he was here. If he was here for another interview, I would say this is terrible. This is not a good reflection on you. It's not a good reflection on the organization that you call the Real News Network. Like other people have said, I think the part that says real needs to be removed from the title of the name. This is no longer quite literally, you can no longer claim that as an accurate name. I don't maybe it was taken away long before this, but I'm just saying this event absolutely takes away the ability to call yourself the Real News Network when you're removing somebody for the news they reported on. So this is quite terrible. This is terrible. But let's continue with the statement. Chris Hedges needs to be free to be Chris Hedges, and he's got to be free to say what's in his heart without being restricted by working within a non-profit newsroom. I resolutely affirm that this decision had nothing to do with Chris' excellent and important coverage of vital issues, from Israel and the war on Gaza to the trial of Julian Assange, issues that matter deeply to our audience and entire team and our network of freelance contributors. Wait, what? This doesn't make sense here. What is he saying? I resolutely affirm that this decision has nothing to do with Chris' excellent and important coverage. What? What is he being fired for then? That this completely does not make any logical sense. What is the egregious item that he's being removed for then? What? We will continue our longstanding commitment to reporting on these issues and other stories. What does that even mean when you're removing the person? This is what social democrats do, though. They're able to fix their mouths and use words that don't describe what they're talking about, but it's radical words. They're able to look in the face of reality and say the opposite of what they're seeing with their own eyes with a straight face. I don't even understand, because up until this part, I thought he was being fired for his work. What is he being fired for then? They don't say. He just says it's not that. I am heartbroken to lose Chris as a colleague, but we remain comrades in the struggle for truth, justice, and life. I will forever cherish our conversations and chess games between recordings, our camaraderie, and our friendship, and I can't wait to see what this titan of journalism does next. With love and solidarity. This is how they're able. And it's so telling. Put this, Aaron, as the cover. It's so telling of this picture. It sort of illustrates what social democrats are willing to do in this game. they're willing to take out people who they call their comrades in the same community, in the same struggle, in order to stay in the good graces of the people we're fighting. So you're playing chess, but then when you win, you tell Chris to leave. That's your win? Pretty fucking despicable. And it's a very vague, a very intentionally vague, missing the most important detail, the why. He says it's not that, but he doesn't say what it is. Ajamu Baraka, and let's read a couple of reaction to this. Let's read some reaction. We have Dennis Kucinich, we have Ajamu, and I think I might have one or two other reactions to this. Ajamu says, it turns out the real news is anything but that. Does anyone have a backbone and a set of principles anymore? The answer, Ajamu, is no. Not anyone. It's certainly not anyone who wants to be in the good graces of the Democratic Party. Certainly not that. Dennis Kucinich says this: we are at a watershed moment. Censorship and intimidation are openly used in furtherance of ethnic cleansing and genocide. So grateful for the extraordinary courage of Chris Hedges and others who courageously stand for humanity at this grim hour. Let us remain steadfast. And kid you not, this is censorship. This is the billionaire class rubbing elbows with the U.S. empire to say, we need to put clamps down on this. They're banning TikTok. They're sending and sicking the police state on protesters. They're suppressing RBN. All of our content, soon as it's uploaded, like this video right now, soon as we're on, it goes to limited, which limits the visibility. They're putting the clamp down and it's not going to work. That's Dennis Kucinich. Here is Nick's video, and this will kind of sum it up a little bit. Let's do that. Yeah, let's listen to Nick's video here. Oh. And then we'll get to the Dennis Kucinich. What the hell just happened here? I paused this, and then I just opened this. You see that? You see how I click on it and it doesn't do anything? What's going on here? Jeez, Twitter is... you're supposed to get better with your technological updates. Let's listen to Nick and his hotspot on this very topic here. So let's listen.
Chris Hedges' show was canceled on the Real News Network because of his extremely critical coverage of Israel and his refusal to support genocide Joe Biden. Chris Hedges explains in a social media post that Max Alvarez let him go because Chris Hedges' show threatened their status as a nonprofit because the coverage that Chris Hedges was doing was upsetting Real News Network's donors. The word real is doing a lot of work in the name Real News Network. If your existence as a journalist and news outlet relies on big donors and that impacts your coverage, you're not a journalist. You are a paid propagandist for the capitalist class. But Max Alvarez and Real News Network, they want to be paid propagandists for the capitalist class. So that's why they let go Chris Hedges, a award-winning journalist. Like, how do you cancel Chris Hedges of all people and think that is going to go well for you? We've seen a rise of quote-unquote progressive news outlets following George W. Bush Jr.'s administration, and then a boom of that same industry when Bernie Sanders ran 2 times in 2016 and 2020. These same progressive media outlets was rendered useless when they became infected with Trump derangement syndrome. Because of this, the main objective of progressive news outlets was to defeat Trump and to appease the anti-Trump viewer base instead of telling the truth. The good news is that we are living through the golden era of independent journalism, so Chris Hedges don't need them. The era of journalists being partisan bootlicking cheerleaders is over. Either you tell the truth and nothing but the truth, or you lose all credibility. And the Real News Network, they just lost all their credibility.
That's my brother Nick with another hotspot classic. Now let's go to YouTube here. Yeah, let's go to YouTube and let's watch the first, I think it's 2.5 minutes, maybe, roughly around there, 2.5 minutes, that Chris and George Galloway talk about this subject. And it is, I thought I had it right here. Oh, here it goes. It was the first video. My bad, everybody. So we're going to watch, and again, we're just going to watch the part of the firing part. And then once they pivot to Palestine, we're gonna do something. We're gonna go away, or that's where we're gonna cut it, and we're gonna cover the second part in a different stream.
Now,
So,
he won't thank me for putting it this way.
Let me pause it and set this up. All right, so let's finish, and this is the last part of the segment. Then we can move on to the next one here. Hit that like button. Don't forget to do that. Let's listen. Here is George Galloway with Chris Hedges.
But if there is a saint walking around in progressive politics anywhere today, it's Chris Hedges. A saintly, educated, calm, cool, and collected voice of experience on war and high politics, high crimes and misdemeanors. In a sane America, he'd be pretty near the president's desk at the White House. At least he'd be at Foggy Bottom as the Secretary of State. Instead, Chris Hedges has just been cancelled from yet another gig, yet another platform. But he'll never, ever be cancelled from the mother of all talk shows. Chris Hedges, welcome. Before we get on to the big stuff, the important, more important stuff like ceasefires, war, famine, pestilence, and disease. What have they done to you now?
Well, the primary funder of the Real News is a guy named T.M. Scruggs, who told the Real News that if they did anything, in his eyes, to elect Donald Trump, they would lose their funding. That is just an inverted way of saying support Joe Biden and the Democrats. I have a long history with Scruggs. He had given money to Scheer Post, the website run by Bob Scheer. I had written a column defending the writer Alice Walker against charges that she was an anti-Semite. Scruggs demanded the column be removed. He was a major donor. And then when Bob Scheer refused to remove it, he cut off all contributions to the site. So the editor of the Real News, Max Alvarez, said that I was canceled because I jeopardized his nonprofit status. That is completely untrue. What happened was I interviewed Dennis Kucinich, former member of the House, former presidential candidate, anti-war candidate, who is running for a House seat as an independent in Ohio. I did not endorse him, which would have violated nonprofits. So I did not violate the rules. And what happened was that interview was removed from the site, and then my show was immediately terminated. That's the problem with wealthy, rich people or corporations running news sites. They distort, corrupt the truth, the news, whether that's on MSNBC, where every analyst discussing the police assaults on U.S. universities for non-violent protest, arresting students for trespassing on their own campuses, come from the police agencies or the security forces. So I got caught up in it. I'll have to, establish something now that is completely independent. As you said, I was pushed out of the New York Times for denouncing the war in Iraq when the wealthy publisher of Truthdig tried to fire the editor, Bob Scheer. I organized a strike among all the staff except for 2 of them, and then we were all fired. It's not a new story, but the walls are really closing in. There's just
the walls are closing in on, you got these so-called left-wing funders, the billionaires that fund these so-called left-wing projects that they always have a breaking point. They always have a line, or they can be activated to suppress by the U.S. empire. And maybe that's what happened here, because he had this Dennis Kucinich thing. This is months ago. This has been out for months. He hasn't been doing new content regularly. So this is based on past content. So that means somebody picked up the phone and said, hey, it's time to activate threat level 10. Biden is losing. We need to do something. And ergo this. Now, let's think back to what Max Alvarez said in the announcement by the Real News Network on Twitter. Oh, it wasn't that. And what did Chris just say in this video? He said, Max Alvarez said this, and that's a bold-faced lie. Essentially, that's what he said. But let's go back to how he tells the story. I just want to listen to the first 30 seconds again so you can hear the name of the billionaire and how this unfolded.
Ceasefires, war, famine, pestilence, and disease. What have they done to you now?
Well, the primary funder of the Real News is a guy named T.M. Scruggs, who told the Real News that if
T.M. Scruggs, the primary funder of the Real News Network, is T.M. Scruggs. Now, you know how, what is it? The Intercept is funded by a billionaire. All these entities are funded by these quote-unquote left-wing billionaires. But these billionaires are billionaires for a reason, and they need the U.S. empire to make money. So they're not going to go too far against the U.S. empire. They might do a little bit more than the Republicans, but that's not saying much. Let me let him finish what he was saying here. Let me go back a few seconds.
The primary funder of the Real News is a guy named T.M. Scruggs, who told the Real News that if they did anything in his eyes, to elect Donald Trump, they would lose their funding. That is just an inverted way of saying support Joe Biden and the Democrats.
If we did anything to elect Donald Trump, I'm sorry, the Real News Network did anything to elect Donald Trump, you would lose your nonprofit. That's what happens when you're funded by a billionaire. They're able to pull rank. Now, think about that. This is what actually happened, but Max Alvarez is trying to paint a different picture. Now, based on what Chris says, him saying, actually, let me listen to this again and see how he words this.
They would lose their funding. That is just an inverted way of saying support Joe Biden and the Democrats. I have a long history.
So what he said earlier was supporting you must support the Biden administration, or if you do anything, this is the way he said it. If you do anything, this is how the billionaire said it. If you do anything to get Trump elected, you're going to lose your nonprofit. How do you think that's going to frame the upcoming coverage by the Real News Network? How do you think, knowing that, wow, if we do anything here to elect Trump, not necessarily if Trump gets elected, But if we do anything, if our coverage contributes to voter suppression, contributes to people not wanting to support Joe Biden and in effect electing Trump, we're going to lose our nonprofit. So how do you think their coverage is going to be? How do you think the news network is going to cover Joe Biden? How do you think they're going to cover the press? How do you think they're going to cover protest? This is a terrible blow to the Real News Network. Like, I mean, I didn't, watch and read it regularly, but when they had some stories I did, they were kind of a go-to for certain stories. I would go to them. I probably covered 3 written stories, one of which was talking about how the squad or something like that. The squad is not really living up. No, TYT is not. They move right, which speaks to what I said earlier, where they're kind of in between. This is Max Alvarez, kind of in between regular social Democrats, what they label themselves as progressive Democrats, and people to my left, slightly to my right. I'm sorry. So he's not in between me, us, RBN, and them. He's in between. I can't even name somebody who holds that. But he's in between somewhere radical or a little bit more radical and social Democrats. And that was one of the things I saw that kind of gave me that impression was the TYT report. Them literally calling them out like this is the reporting on the Real News Network. It was like they're calling out TYT for how they've shifted right on policing, on homelessness. I covered that story myself. Let's listen to the rest of this interview.
They would lose their funding. That is just an inverted way of saying support Joe Biden and the Democrats. I have a long history with Scruggs. He had given money to Scheer Post, the website run by Bob Scheer. I had written a column defending the writer Alice Walker against charges that she was an anti-Semite. Scruggs demanded the column be removed. He was a major donor. And then when Bob Scheer refused to remove it, he cut off all contributions to the site. So the editor of The Real News, Max Alvarez, said that I was canceled because I jeopardized his nonprofit status. That is completely untrue. What happened was I interviewed Dennis Kucinich, former member of the House, former presidential candidate, anti-war candidate, who is running for a House seat as an independent in Ohio. I did not endorse him, which would have violated nonprofits. So I did not violate the rules. And what happened was that interview was removed from the site, and then my show was immediately terminated. That's the problem with wealthy, rich people or corporations running news sites. They distort, corrupt the truth, the news, whether that's on MSNBC, where every analyst discussing the police assaults on U.S. universities for non-violent protest, arresting students for trespassing on their own campuses, come from the police agencies or the security forces. So I got caught up in it. I'll have to, establish something now that is completely independent. As you said, I was pushed out of the New York Times for denouncing the war in Iraq when the wealthy publisher of Truthdig tried to fire the editor, Bob Scheer. I organized a strike among all the staff except for 2 of them, and then we were all fired. It's not a new story, but the walls are really closing in. There's just less and less possibility for legitimate criticism, legitimate dissent, and honest journalism.
And that's why we're all moving independent. And that's why young people watch independent. You think young people don't know that this corporate cable nonsense, these press stories are just propaganda. They do. And this is the reason, another reason why they want to get rid of TikTok is too much the information is not filtered through the US empire. It's not filtered through that way. So that's the reason for that. All right, so let's go now to the next story. Today is a field day. FEEL. I'm doing stories in the order of how I'm feeling instead of having a planned. So I look at the story and let's see which one I feel like doing next here. Let's do another quick one. This would be a quick one here. And that's Kshama Sawant. And actually, I should change it to Kshama Sawant and Dr. Jill Stein, but I won't. We'll keep it like the way it is now. And it's a more quick story. So we all know that by now we should know that UAW, or the leadership, not the rank and file, but the leadership of UAW sold out workers, their own workers, and just the concept of unionization and labor organizing, and endorsed Joe Biden, the strike-breaking Joe Biden, which is insane for a union to endorse somebody who's a strike breaker. That is just insane to me. So we know about that. We know about Shawn Fain being a sellout. We know about Shawn Fain being in the pocket of the Democratic Party. We know all of this. We know Shawn Fain likes to use a lot of radical rhetoric that's not backed up by a lot of radical action. That doesn't mean, what they accomplished in contract negotiations isn't good. It just means what my critique is, it could have been a lot better with somebody who was actually a socialist, like his opponent in the race to be UAW president, the socialist that lost to him. It was a close race. But anyway, that is Shawn Fain. He's been on several times, been used as a prop to say Joe Biden this, Joe Biden that, because of the numbers in the polls. I've covered it at least twice. And I'm covering this bastard again because Kshama Sawant, who is a lot more diplomatic, let's say that way, she's a lot more diplomatic with these people, which is good. That's her space. Our space is a more in your face. Everybody has a role in this. And here is what Kshama Sawant says. She says, it's crucial UAW President Shawn Fain is condemning repression of mass arrests and anti-war protesters on college campuses. So he's condemning it. Now's the time for Brother Fain and UAW leaders to rescind the endorsement of Biden, the warmonger in chief. Let me open it up here. The labor movement needs to say no to both Biden and Trump, reject both the warmongering parties of U.S. imperialism and the billionaire class, vote for Jill Stein or Cornel West this year as a step towards building a new party for the working class against war. I would add Claudia de la Cruz, because that's who I'm voting for in California. I'm voting for Claudia de la Cruz. Luckily, in California, we are one of the states that have, I would say, just about anybody who's running is on our ballot. It's all different types of parties that you probably have never heard of that appear on our ballot. So that's one good thing. But let's look at what she points out. Now, this is Shawn Fain saying, quote, now I don't need to quote, you can see. The UAW will never support the mass arrest or intimidation of those exercising their right to protest, strike, or speak out against injustice. Our union has been calling for a ceasefire for 6 months. Have you? When you endorse? How does that work? Ceasefire. Vote for the guy that's doing the genocide. Ceasefire, though. Vote for the guy who's doing the genocide. Does that make sense? This war is wrong. And this response against students and academic workers, many of them UAW members, is wrong. So the president, who's actually going against two of your things, Sean, he's going against the ceasefire that your union is calling, and he's going against your UAW workers. Isn't that cause enough to endorse the warmonger in chief? We call on the powers that be. You mean Joe Biden? To release the students and employees who have been arrested. And if you can't take the outcry, stop supporting this war. Why don't you say Joe Biden? Because when you want to act like he's a labor president, you sure as hell say Joe Biden clearly. But now you want to say to the powers that be. You see the weak shit, these social democrats, and Sean Fain is a social democrats. That's why the Majority Report, that's why Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland, that's why TYT, that's why they love him. They think he is Malcolm X Part 2, just the white version. That's what they think of him. But this is a good push. You have people in the struggle, people in this space with us whose job is to be more diplomatic with their pushes. And you see her. She's being nice. She's calling them Brother Thane. That's good. When we're pressuring people, you want all angles. You want the one that's coming in. Come on, man, friend, do the right thing. You want the one shouting at the window, motherfucker, do it. That's us. That's RBN. And then you also want the one who has a little public clout making public statements where they're praising you. She clearly is praising him in order to say do the right thing, which is unendorsed Joe Biden. And I think we can cut it there as far as this segment. Like I said, it is a shorter segment. Now let's start to get in some of our actual the main stories that are on the graphic. We're going to do the Bernie story. We just finished the Chris Hedges story, and then we're going to do the large story. So let's do Bernie, and then we'll do the larger story, which is Joe Biden torches lesser of two evil. And let's do that. But before we do that, I guess I can make just a couple of announcements here. Oops, this is mine. So let's wait. Is this showing here? No. So let's bring this one down, and let me bring up a different Twitter page. Where am I? Yeah. So a couple announcements. One, let me go here. RBN Long Beach is now RBN Inland Empire. I have moved to the Inland Empire, so the chapter is moving with me. So just wanted to make sure everybody knows that. RBN, Revolutionary Blackout Network Long Beach chapter, is moving to, or has moved to, the Inland Empire. So if you are in the Inland Empire and want to be a part of the chapter, all you have to do is email us. I'll put our email up right here. Email us in the subject title, put RBN Inland Empire. RBN Inland Empire. Include your name and the city you're in the Inland Empire. We have about 7 or 8 responses already. So it'd be good if we can get like 15 people, a good 15 people, a part of this chapter to start us out with, to be the founding members of the Inland Empire chapter. So if you want to be part of the founding member class of the Inland Empire chapter of RBN, reach out to us by email. You see the email scrolling there. For those listening, the email is info@revblacknetwork.com. In the subject line, make sure to include RBN Inland Empire. It absolutely helps. The other thing I'll shout out before we get back to the stories is this here. We are running a very special fundraiser for our editor who recently lost her husband due to a heart attack just not too long ago, a few months ago. When you notice the graphics kind of changed because I was doing it. It went from being great to being terrible because I was doing them for several months because that's when she was going through that time. And with him being the primary breadwinner, helping her financially is something we want to make sure we do our best to do. So help out our RBN editor. We consider her a family member. You see the GoFundMe there. If you're able to chip in $5, $10, it will be greatly appreciated. The last time I checked, I haven't done it in a few days, but last time I checked, we were at $1,100 of our $5,000 goal. $1,100 of our $5,000 goal. So if you're able to help out, please do. Is there one more announcement I wanted to make? I don't know if I do, but I just wanted to make sure. No, I didn't. All right, so that's all there is for announcements. So let's get back into the story. And the way we're going to come back to the story is, I guess it's not just Bernie Sanders that we're going to be covering in this next. It's a couple of people. And it's elected progressive Democrats are so useless to the people in Gaza. That's what we're calling this segment. And let me see what do I have for this segment. I have a Bernie video and I have a Mehdi Hassan video. And I think I have one of them prepped. I don't. So let's go to the Mehdi Hassan video. Now, Mehdi Hassan went on the Majority Report with Sam Cedar and Eamon Biglin for a long interview. They talked about a couple of things, of course, Israel, and we'll probably cover that in a different stream. And they also, they talked about Israel and Palestine, and that's the one we're going to cover today. I'm sorry. They also talked about something else, and we're going to cover, that's what I meant to say. I said it the opposite way. But the student protests. We're going to cover that because that interview, that video is 45 minutes. We're not going to cover the 45-minute video, but we're going to cover this other one, which is right here. And so we get to in Social Democrats all in one screen because we're going to have screen. I found the video. Because okay, now I have a pause. Because we're going to have the opportunity, and you're going to see what I mean here as I put in this video. We're going to have the opportunity to see to sort of examine Bernie Sanders, Mehdi Hassan, and the Social Democrats who take their cues from people like Mehdi Hassan, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and that is the Majority Report. We get to see all four. We get to see four Social Democrats and one screen. Isn't it fun, guys? So here you see three, but they're going to bring in the Messiah, the Bernie Sanders, the guy that they consider a Messiah to the progressive movement, if you can call it a movement. They call themselves a movement. But we're going to start from the beginning. This is Mehdi Hassan, and they're examining Bernie Sanders going on CNN. And the reason the title is Elected Progressive Democrats or Elected Progressive Democrats are so useless to the people in Gaza is because they straddle the fence. They make sure to stand with certain empire talking points or make sure they don't cross those talking points. And then they also do some left stuff. But they make sure not to go too far out of the bounds of what's acceptable, right? They make sure they don't do that. People like Mehdi Hassan is that. Majority Report is definitely that. And of course, Bernie Sanders is the king of that. So let's listen to how they saw this.
What about just the vibes of an election year where there's going to be massive protests, I assume, at Congress if Netanyahu turns up while leading a genocide? There's going to be massive protests in Chicago at the DNC and uncommitted delegates. We could have a 1968 scene on our hands. How does that general image of chaos and division, Democrats in disarray, which the media loves that headline, how does that help Biden going into a very close election? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's play this clip. And you mentioned 1968.
Here we go.
Here's
Right.
this is Bernie Sanders on what was he on this weekend? I don't know.
This is with Amanpour on CNN. So he was on yesterday, and
who has been doing? We should say it's been doing. Christian Amanpour has been doing a really
very good. She's
job
one of the best
covering
at CNN right now, without a shadow of a doubt.
and she's showing her bona fides as somebody who's an actual international correspondent, as opposed to someone just sitting in a studio, because she just gets it. Yeah, like what Israel has been engaging for this long.
There was a long interview with Sanders, but this is apropos for what we've just been talking about.
Semitism is a vile and disgusting ideology, which, as everybody knows, in the last 100 years alone, has led to the deaths of many, many, many millions of people. We got to fight anti-Semitism in every way that we can. But for anybody to suggest that we cannot be critical of the government of Israel or the government of Italy or the government of Ireland, for whatever reason, is not what democracy is about. So I happen to believe, not everybody agrees with me, that the war policies of the Netanyahu government are a disaster. They are causing unprecedented harm. They are in violation of international law and absolutely in violation of American law, by the way. But I think people who are critical, the idea that people who are critical of what Netanyahu is doing are anti-Semitic, that is nonsense. And that is a very, very dangerous line to cross in terms of freedom of expression in this country.
And for our generation.
But think about the position the Social Democrats are in, which is, to me, is always a weird position. And you notice in the beginning of this video, they're framing how they're talking about the convention in Chicago is like comparing it to an old one. It's always in a, they're hoping to get the Biden administration to do the right things, to calm down these people, do the right thing, do these things to calm them down so they will support you. It's never if you do the wrong thing, we're not going to support you. It's never that sort of framing. And just like in, what did we just cover where they didn't Sean Fain, just like in the previous segment with Sean Fain, he didn't want to say Joe Biden's name. He just said to the powers that be. This is Bernie Sanders doing the same thing here. Let's listen to this interview.
Who grew up in the era of never again and are very, very committed to that. I think it's really tough when we see this word weaponized and maybe lose its sting and its importance, as Kenneth Stern warns. So I want to ask you, my question to you is, what do you think now is going to happen to Biden and his campaign? Where do you think all of this is going to lead? Because it's also about American foreign policy.
So, before we let them answer, what do you think Bernie's going to say? Now, you may have seen this video and you might, you're going to be unfair. But for those that may not have seen this video, what do you think Bernie Sanders will say here? Like, she's basically saying, what do you see happening? What's happening in Gaza? How do you see that reflecting here in American politics, possibly in November? Let's see what Bernie Sanders says to this question.
Well, in terms of his campaign, I am thinking back, and other people are making this reference, that this may be Biden's Vietnam. Lyndon Johnson.
If this is Biden's Vietnam, that's not good. So you have Bernie Sanders coming out saying something like this. This could be Biden's Vietnam because of what he's doing and what people are saying. But he's doubling down on the protests. And the reason I say they're useless, these elected progressives are useless to the protests on college campuses, and they're also useless to the people in Gaza. Because with all of their advocacy to do the right thing, they lose their spine when it comes to talking to the people in their party who's actually doing this. Because if it was Trump doing all of this stuff, they possibly would be out picketing. They possibly be organizing. They possibly would be doing anything impossible. Because it's fine when you're an elected progressive to go against the empire, long as it's the red empire that's in power. When it's a blue empire, then you swallow some of your policy beliefs. Then you're not as strict on some of your policy beliefs, i.e. AOC and the immigration facilities. This is the issue with social democracy. We saw it all throughout today's episode, even with Max Alvarez. In order to make a deal to remain in the good graces, even if it's to remain in the room, even if it's at the kids' table, you have to make a deal. You have to be able to come on board with some of the empire's way of thinking, and you're not going to be coming off of that. And in the Social Democrats case, the thing that that's most egregious to me is what Malcolm X and MLK describe as them, that they're white liberals and they're willing to sell you out in order to remain sort of in that, at that kids' table that they see as a power position. Sitting at the kids' table is a power position to them because they're in the room. But we all know that at the kids' table, none of the kids have any power. That's essentially what's happening with the Social Democrats, elected Social Democrats. Let's finish out and listen to what the Majority Report and Mehdi Hasan says about this interview.
Johnson, in many respects, was a very, very good president. Domestically, brought forth some major pieces of legislation. He chose not to run in '68 because of opposition to his views on Vietnam. And I worry very much that President Biden is putting himself in a position where he has alienated not just young people, but a lot of the Democratic base in terms of his views on Israel and this war.
I mean, tough to argue. Although I don't think we're going to see Biden step aside, although I think that would be effective, frankly. But I don't think he's going to step aside.
Yeah, I think that window closed, and the only reason he steps aside now is it's a health issue.
Right.
I mean, his poll ratings are not that bad. I mean, they're just not. It's a close race, right? It shouldn't be this close. Okay, there's two different things. One, to be clear, it shouldn't be close. Donald Trump shouldn't be close to anyone in a normal country. He would not be polling anywhere near the possible.
What does that mean in a normal country? I thought we were the beacon of democracy. You guys buy into the January 6th nonsense, the losing democracy nonsense. That's weird to say that, Mehdi.
The possibility of winning. The guy's on trial. The guy is a fascist. The guy tried to destroy American democracy. Put that to one side. I think you swap out Biden for any other generic Dem. It's not like they're going to suddenly have a 10-point lead on Trump. This country is so divided. The negative partisanship is so high that those are the numbers we have. And that's why it's such an important to get your base out, right? So important to get your people knocking on doors in an election where anywhere between 40 to 70,000 voters could decide the entire election for the entire country. You can't take risks. You need to be able to inspire and energize. I just don't see that. And it's not just Gaza, by the way. Are you seeing that on other fronts? I'm not seeing that on other fronts either from Biden.
Well, the
marijuana thing was good, but what do they do?
The marijuana thing, I mean, but I'm looking back at, like, you know, the pause that they did on that liquid natural gas export facility permitting. Bill McKibben says that was the biggest thing that we have seen, bigger than the Willow Project screw up. I mean, bigger than anything. But there's not going to be any coverage of it because it's all stepped on because of what's going on with.
And you can't even just blame the media or Republicans.
So they're upset that the crumbs that Joe Biden is attempting to market to bring back voters is being overshadowed by a genocide. They don't like that. Should it not happen that way? Should a genocide not trump any and all other news? These are social democrats.
Republican Party, you have Democrats encouraging this crap. You have, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. That was sponsored by a Democrat and a Republican. Ridiculous bill that sucked up media and political oxygen this week.
There's a quality of this that's reminiscent about like the HR1 when the Democrats took the Congress, the House against Trump, and they're unveiling their big signature piece of legislation, which is going to be a huge message bill. And instead, everybody's talking about Nancy Pelosi censuring Ilhan Omar at the time because that's what they decided to do. There's a similar sort of like quality that's going on here. These whatever it is, providing DACA coverage under Obamacare today, nobody's going to be talking about.
But you see, they're upset that nobody's talking about all these other little things that Joe Biden, and they're little compared to a genocide. I don't care how big they are. They're little compared to a genocide. They want no positive coverage is getting out. How is this an ally to people in Gaza? How is this an ally to people that are protesting? How is this framing this point of view allyship to those people?
Talking about that tomorrow because they're talking about Netanyahu or what's going on college campuses.
It's a simple political calculation. If Joe Biden were to come out tomorrow and say, we are cutting arms to Israel until we get a ceasefire right now, until Netanyahu says we're staying out of Rafah, and until more aid goes in, right? If he said that, what would that cost him? What would that cost him? Because I hear people say, well, you can't afford to lose Jewish votes just to win Muslim and Arab votes. Most Jewish voters in this country don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't understand what the political calculation is that prevents you from picking a fight with Benjamin Netanyahu. There is none. He's super unpopular. The only people who like Benjamin Netanyahu in this country are the House GOP, right? Nobody likes Benjamin Netanyahu. It's an easy fight to have. He doesn't have it because he doesn't want to. Because it's not about political calculation. He likes Benjamin Netanyahu. He feels it his obligation to do this behind-the-scenes bullshit strategy where behind the scenes he doesn't like Netanyahu. It just doesn't work. We're 7 months in, and there's just it's a win-win all around. If you come out for a ceasefire, you get international respect. You look like a strong leader. You're doing morally the right thing. You're shoring up your flank with progressives and non-white voters in places like Michigan and Georgia.
I literally don't understand the strategy of the social democrat as I'm listening to all this more broadly. Let's take a more broader look at what's going on instead of the specific. I don't understand the strategy. You're in a party that is facilitating a genocide. You're doing protests, and he says the protest is not going to change what he does. Yet you're telling people to go vote for him. How, with this sort of strategy, do you ever get what you want? How do you get what you want if you're willing to vote for him when he's saying, no, I'm not doing none of that? He said Medicare for all, I'll veto that shit. Because he give you some NLRB appointments? We're supposed to overlook all the bad stuff. And this is the deal why I don't understand. It is not... You're not reaping a significant enough return to be a social democrat, to be a progressive Democrat. Any good you get is outweighed by tons of bad by simply giving more power to the Democrats by sheer numbers. Like, meaning, if we vote in progressives, so Democrats go from having, 48 senators. Let's do this. Let's do the House. Let's say the Democrats go from having, 210 seats, and then we vote in 20 progressives. We're like, oh, we got 20 progressives. We're going to get some progressive shit. Really? There's 210 Democrats who aren't progressives. So how is that going to happen? We are voting, supposedly, just go with the most lenient framing of this. We're voting for good people to put on a good team, we're voting for good people to put on a bad team, but the bad team is led by bad leadership, all of them. The people who are next in line to be leadership, they're all bad too. We elected a bunch of bench warmers who don't even get in the game. How does that help us? It doesn't make any sense. All you're doing is giving more power to the top of the leadership that does want to do all the things you don't want to have happen. That's why this doesn't make any sense to me. That's as clear as I can put it. Let's listen to a little more, and then we're gonna go to a Bernie video where he's talking about the protests, and it's again. Like, I'll wait to give my commentary till we get to his video.
Who are you pissing off? You're pissing off the House GOP and a few Christian evangelicals.
I think your point about him looking well, you're saying that he would look strong. He looks weak. Like, so we talk about his age, and that's that we can't change that, right?
Definitely.
But Sam has made this point before that the age is kind of correlated with a perception of him as a weak leader.
Yes.
And there was
the age. We think he has bad numbers, polling numbers on his age, because people see him as a weak leader, or because he walks like he's about to stumble, or because of all of the gaffes. You see how the Bernie Sanders industrial complex can't give an honest critique here, because the establishment has outlawed any sort of real critique about his age. The only thing you're allowed to talk about in this space about his age is to pretend like it really is about his age, or something else like leadership, and not the fact that people can see with their own eyes that this guy is in decline. This is the deal, Social Democrats, which makes them useless.
There was a poll in CNN that said 81% of people, and this was taken a few weeks ago, it's probably higher, of people 18 to 35 disapprove of how he's handling Israel and Gaza. But in general, the majority position in America right now is they don't approve of Israel's actions now, and that's been a shift. So if he wants to look strong, perhaps stand up to the leader of the client state that is entirely dependent on our military aid for their survival by using an ounce of leverage. That would help him with the age stuff, because he...
You know, this supposed leverage, we don't really have this leverage. Israel's the one with the leverage, because Israel knows it's more, the United States is only helping them so that they have a military outpost in the Middle East. If Israel was in Finland, nobody, they wouldn't even be involved in this. So this idea, we're just going to pull funding. Why? So we can lose access to a very significant military post? We're not doing that. When has a failing empire scaled back? That's not happening. Let's get back to the video.
He has some vitality.
When did Biden look strongest as president of the United States? In my view, he looked strongest as president of the United States when he did the State of the Union, and he got heckled by Republicans, and he heckled them back. Right? People like a fighter. I've said this before. It's not even about...
These guys are part of independent media, but yet they're talking about campaigns like corporate people talk about campaigns, looking strong. That is absolutely not a thing. When did Biden look his strongest? At the State of the Union? Are you on crack? Are you on crack? At the State of the Union. Well, maybe Joe Biden was on crack that day because he was hopped up on something. But let's listen to the rest of this. Oops.
It's not about left and right, like we're on the left. It's not about what your politics, policies, yeah, that's all important. But actually, people just want someone with fire in their belly who's willing to have a fight. And guess what? You've been given the gift. You could have a fight with Benjamin Netanyahu, Itamar Ben-Gvir, and Bezalel Smotrich, like the worst people. It's like MBS during the Trump era. It was easy for Democrats to call out Trump because the bad guy was MBS, like a cartoon villain. Well, we've got another cartoon villain. His name's Netanyahu.
Yeah, I that's why I say I think it's Biden's most ideological position he's held probably in his career. I mean, you can go back and I'm sure you're aware of that when
Oh,
Menachem.
he's been a Zionist, wanted to have a genocide person this whole time, and you guys wanted to vote for him. That's nice. Isn't that just grand? Let's go to another video. This one is Bernie Sanders. I think we've watched enough of that. Oops, I meant to go to Twitter. Let's go to Bernie Sanders here. My video is right there for make sure. All right, so there's a Bernie Sanders video here. It is under look what I put. Worthless social democrats. So this is Cory Bush shouting out Senator Sanders in this video he put out. And this is what they do. They put out videos instead of calling up the person who's causing the problem, but they put out videos so people out there say, look, he's doing something. No, he's not. He's putting out a video for you to see. That's it. So let's listen to Bernie Sanders and understand the critique is not what he's saying. He could be saying a bunch of good stuff. The critique is you saying all this good stuff does what when you are in bed with facilitating funds going to Israel? You're in bed with the Zionist project. What does this all mean that you're saying about the protests? What does this all mean that you're saying about the protests when the person you're telling us to vote for is the one who's causing the problem for the protest?
Are you ready for a very radical statement?
Shut up.
Well, here it goes. I support the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, and this is what it says, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, end of quote. Let us be clear. Protests and demonstrations have played an enormously important and positive role in modern American history. Without protests led by Dr. King and others, we would not have made progress in eliminating segregation in America and combating racism. Without protests, women in America would still be second-class citizens, unable to control their own bodies or have equal opportunities in the workforce. Without protests, many of our gay brothers and sisters would still be hiding their sexual identity. Today, on college campuses all over this country, students are exercising their constitutional right to protest. They are standing in opposition to American policy, which is providing billions of dollars for Netanyahu's right-wing extremist Israeli government's war against the Palestinian people. A war which has already killed 33,000 Palestinians and injured 77,000 more, 2/3 of whom are women and children. A war which has destroyed or damaged more than half of the housing in Gaza. A war which has essentially annihilated the healthcare system in Gaza. A war which has done incredible damage to the civilian infrastructure in Gaza, electricity, clean water, and sewage. A war which has bombed every one of the 13 universities in Gaza and left hundreds of thousands of children without schooling. In my view, demonstrations must be nonviolent. Not only is that the right thing to do, it is the most effective thing to do. The focus must be on the suffering of the people in Gaza, not bricks flying through windows. And absolutely, we must all work together to make certain that we free our country from all forms of bigotry, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, homophobia, and every other form of hatred. It is the most.
So it was hard to watch all of that without talking, but I'm going to rewind it and touch upon a couple of points. I know there's 3 distinct points that I want to make about this clown shit here. Because he actually, if you listen, he's actually chastising the protests. The guy who was arrested for protesting is chastising protesters today. If you didn't catch it, let's listen to it.
Are you ready for a very radical statement? Well, here it goes.
Actually, let me say this. What the Social Democrats do is buy into the narrative of the establishment. And that's what Bernie Sanders does in his video by pretending that protest is violent. By actually, let's let it play, and then I'll make the second. I don't want to get ahead of myself.
I support the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, and this is what it says, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, end of quote. Let us be clear. Protests and demonstrations have played an enormously important and positive role in modern American history. Without protests led by Dr. King and others, we would not have made progress in eliminating segregation in America and combating racism.
Was there any Molotov cocktails, any bricks thrown through windows during the civil rights movement that you're praising right now, Bernie Sanders? Was there?
Without protests, women in America would still be second-class citizens, unable to control their own bodies or have equal opportunities in the workforce. Without protests, many of our gay brothers and sisters would still be hiding their sexual identity. Today,
so this is what Social Democrats do. So you see how he hit on every point. He hit on women, he hit on black people, he hit on the gay community. So he hit on those three, checking off all of his identity politics boxes, checking off all the categories of people he wants to market this to, like he's really championing this idea. That's the presentation he wants to give. That's what he wants you to believe. Let's listen.
On college campuses all over this country, students are exercising their constitutional right to protest. They are standing in opposition to American policy, which is providing billions of dollars for Netanyahu's right-wing extremist Israeli government's war against the Palestinian people. A war which has already killed 33,000 Palestinians and injured 77,000 more, 2/3 of whom are women and children. A war which has destroyed or damaged more than half of the housing in Gaza. A war which has essentially annihilated the healthcare system in Gaza.
Now, all of the atrocities that Bernie Sanders is describing was supported by the person you're seeing on the screen right now, known as Bernie Sanders. All the way, I think, when did he make his pivot to start talking about Palestinian shipment? I think it was in late November, maybe December. But we forget, you were protested by your own staff. You had a letter written to you by your own staff. The issue with social democracy and social democrats is this waffling, is this sometimes you're on my side, sometimes you're on the other side. And they're opposing sides. This is why you can't effectively get anything done, because you're hopping to two sides instead of staying on one side and trying to push that mission through. But then you'll hop back on the other side. It's like you're playing a tug of war, but you're just with yourself. You get on this side with the rope, you pull, and then you hop to the other side, then you pull. That's all you're doing. You're not really going anywhere. Either way. So let's continue.
A war which has done incredible damage to the civilian infrastructure in Gaza,
that you
electricity,
supported
clean water, and sewage.
initially.
A war which has bombed every one of the 13 universities in Gaza and left hundreds of thousands of children without schooling. In my view, demonstrations must be nonviolent. Not only is that the right thing to do, it is the most.
So the first part of this video was the part, his progressive side. Then he has to come in with his establishment to say, look, I haven't gone crazy. Yeah, you give me leeway to say this, but now I'm shoring up the deal by saying the part that's your framing. Anybody can look and see that the vast majority of that protest is not violent. Anyone can see that. So to me, this shouldn't even, when talking about the protest, this shouldn't even be brought up to me. Because you're playing into the establishment, the U.S. empire's talking points. The other one is calling this anti-Semitism.
Effective thing to do. The focus must be on the suffering of the people in Gaza, not bricks flying through windows.
You see how the focus needs to be on the people of Gaza, not bricks flying through windows. Like the brick can't be part of the tactic to stop everything. And this is what he's also buying into the establishment framing that property is included in this so-called violence. Because there's no violence against people outside of the Zionist beating up some people. I think it was on the campus of UCLA or USC. Social democracy and social democrats are useless. Let's continue.
And absolutely, we must all work together to make certain that we free our country from all forms of bigotry, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia.
You see, this is his way of nicing up the anti-Semitism. He just includes other stuff. But the point, you understand why he's doing this. He is doing this to say, I'm saying it's anti-Semitism needs to go too. That's what the establishment is saying we need to say. And he just adds other things.
Racism, homophobia, and every other form of hatred.
And that's, you see, Bernie Sanders just gave you a clinic on how to appear progressive and at the same time tote the establishment line. He's an expert at it. AOC is not an expert. She's still an amateur. She's still pretty bad at what this is. All right, that's the end of that segment. Let's get to another segment here. I think I got two left, maybe. The two big ones. They're connected. So media, campus protests, and torching lesser evil are connected, but we're going to start with torching lesser evil. It is our main topic, and I want to start actually with my tweet, because the tweet is what sparked the idea of the episode, of the main story of the episode. And let's pivot here, and we're going to talk. Oops, it's at the bottom. This one. Let's take this out. Let's take this out. This out. And this out. Okay. So we're going to be talking, if you look at the scrolling bar at the bottom, Joe Biden torches lesser evil, and then it's going to kind of just flow into the weaponization of U.S. media to attack people against genocide. So you have Joe Biden, who's sort of orchestrating the police state to kind of suppress and saying all these bad things about the protests. And then you have the media that's backing them up. That's why they're kind of connected. So we're starting here with Joe Biden's part. And this is what I tweeted out. Joe Biden is torching lesser evil. That's the concept of the lesser two evil. Biden is proving that the empire and U.S. hegemony trumps all things, including our freedom and rights. And I'm talking about the protests. Your right to protest is not higher than the empire's right to exercise their policy stance. Like it doesn't supersede that. Empire hegemony and empire trumps all things. And I continue with the tweet. Suppressing speech by banning TikTok, preparing for war with China, funding a genocide, and funding Nazis in Ukraine. How on earth can a social democrat, aka progressive Democrat, argue that Biden is the lesser evil? And I'm not a Trump supporter, and I don't want you to vote for Trump, but how is he the lesser evil, knowing what's going on during his administration? And I think it's reflective also in the polls, because people are saying, oh no, we remember the Trump presidency better than the Biden. And Morning Joe and all the other liberal people coping on cable news are just like, where's this coming from? Like they laugh at it like this is so ridiculous. Really? You don't see a genocide? You don't see preparation for war with China? And people don't understand how big that's going to be. A war with China. But that is kind of what sparked it. And let's go to some of the other items I have here. Next item, here is Joe Biden talking about the press. Talking about, not the press, the protest. I said the press. Let's listen to what oops. The hell? Here we go again. Okay. Let's try this again. I guess sometimes you have to click and go to the they want you to use this feature to bring it over to the top, to bring it over to the side. So here is Joe Biden condemns a mini campus demonstration. This is him. It's about a little less than a minute long. Let's listen to Joey right here.
So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear.
Shutting down class. What violence did he mention? Shutting down classes, shutting down graduation. That's violence. That's a peaceful. So what they're trying to establish here, because peaceful means without violence when we're talking about protest, but what they're trying to now establish is peaceful is to encompass civility. They are now trying to include the word peaceful to include civility. That's why they say threatening people. That's why they say making people feel bad. These aren't peaceful. You're not to disturb the process. That's not even a protest. Protest is supposed to disrupt, but he's saying that disruption is not protest. Then what is? Was civil rights a protest? This is fascism, people. This is fascism. So stop saying, oh, fascism may come to the White House. Fascism is here and it's been here.
Fearing people is not peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education.
What?
Look, it's basically a matter
It's a legal
of fairness.
protest.
It's a matter of what's right. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. So let me be clear.
That is what protest is. You don't have the right to cause chaos. I don't understand what this strategy is. Like, this guy is gonna lose and lose badly. Here's another tweet that I put out here. Let's read this one. Joe Biden may be the only president in history to facilitate, cheer on, and support the arrest, detention, and suppression of his own voters. How many of those people on the college campuses are the same young voters in the polls that's not supporting him? Maybe he's presenting payback. Maybe he's saying, hey, you don't support me in the polls, then fuck you then. Maybe he's doing that. I go on to say Biden was already polling terrible with young constituents. Is having your voters arrested a strategy to improve your standing with young constituents? I just don't understand the strategy here. So let's retweet that. And I mean, that's self-explanatory. Now, I will get to this headline here, and it's United Front of Democrats and Republicans back escalation of police attacks on campus protests against genocide in Gaza. We're going to read a little bit of this. Is this the one that's a little bit or a lot? Okay, so I think this is all we're going to read. So let's actually read it, and then we're going to follow up with a video by Caitlin Johnstone. So let's read a little bit of this article. This is from where? Let me see. World Socialist website. That's WSWS.org. You can look up the title here on that website. United Front of Democrats and Republicans back escalation of police attacks on college protests against genocide in Gaza following President Biden's green light last week for police assaults on peaceful campus protests against the U.S.-Israeli genocide in Gaza. Both the scale of police violence and the fever chart of arrests continue to rise. And as students in their thousands courageously defy the police state crackdown, demonstrating at graduation ceremonies across the U.S. over the weekend, the fascistic, I always have a problem with that word, rhetoric and bald-faced lies from Democrats and Republicans alike grow increasingly shrill and sinister. According to both the New York Times and Washington Post, more than 2,300 people have been arrested and criminally charged over the past 2 weeks for holding non-violent protests at U.S. campuses to demand an end to deliberate slaughter and starvation of civilians in Gaza, mainly women and children, and the termination by their schools of investments in corporations linked to the Israeli war machine and its crimes against the Palestinian people. This is why I say Joe Biden is torching the lesser of two evil. He's torching that. Because what are you saying now? We're going to end democracy? This is the democracy? The suppression that's coming from the Biden administration? I mean, we saw it all today. In other segments, Chris Hedges got his stuff removed because the billionaire who wants Joe Biden elected said, hey, do something, Max Alvarez. And voila. So what they're telling us to fear in Donald Trump is already here in Joe Biden. Ain't that something? Let's continue with this part, and I want to go to this video. This is Stone. This is a really good video. I don't know if I can get through 7 minutes without interrupting it. Oh shit! This thing, they forcing you. You have to click and go to the tweet, and then it'll let you do this. This fucking people. Anyway, it's 7 minutes. I'm trying to play more content without me interrupting. That's why I keep taking myself off the screen. So let's listen to a little bit before I have to interrupt, because this is really good. Let's listen to Caitlin Johnstone, one of her latest pieces.
Opposing every war but the current one, supporting civil rights but never right now. In remarks defending the brutal suppression of university demonstrations protesting his genocide in Gaza, President Biden argued that protesting is allowed in the United States so long as it's polite and doesn't disrupt anything or upset anybody. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or quash dissent, said Biden. The American people are heard. In fact, peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues. But, the president continued, neither are we a lawless country. We are a civil society, and order must prevail. Biden went on to argue that violent protest is not protected as a form of free expression, sailing right past the fact that the only actual violence we've seen from these protests came from the police sent in to crack skulls and the bands of pro-Israel thugs who've been attacking campus demonstrators. Biden instead followed his false accusation of violence by listing offenses against inanimate objects, destroying property, vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows. He also listed the offense of shutting down campuses and the offense of forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations, none of which were done by the demonstrators. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not peaceful protest, said Biden, citing 0 examples of this ridiculous allegation, adding that dissent must never lead to disorder, and that there's the right to protest but not the right to cause chaos. The president then, of course, went on to babble about anti-Semitism for a while, on no basis whatsoever. Again, this person is defending an authoritarian police crackdown on peaceful demonstrators protesting against his own actions. The U.S. president is saying, don't worry about the jackbooted tyranny and suppression you're seeing against critics of the U.S. president, because the tyranny and suppression is approved of by that same U.S. president. And that's the Democratic Party for you, folks. That's everything it is right there. It is violence wrapped in politeness. It is fascism cloaked in lip service to civil rights. Shortly before Columbia University called in police to smash the anti-genocide demonstrations on campus the other day, 21 House Democrats signed a letter addressed to the university's Board of Trustees demanding they shut down the, quote, anti-Jewish activists on campus. It is past time for the university to act decisively, disband the encampment, and ensure the safety and security of all its students, the lawmakers declared. This is the same party that always cites its support for civil rights and social justice as a primary reason for people to vote for them, constantly referencing Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders who were intensely despised by the establishment of their own time as heroes we should all strive to emulate. Now they're openly supporting the same tyrannical measures as Republicans to shut down criticism of their government's genocidal and unjust policies, with no regard for the constitutional rights of those critics to speech and assembly. They try to make themselves look progressive and reasonable while doing it, saying it's about fighting anti-Semitism and keeping the peace. But their actual behavior is no different from the tyrants who attacked anti-war protesters and civil rights activists in the 60s. As Democrats get worse and worse the longer Biden's genocide in Gaza continues, I find myself recalling a tweet that went viral back in November by an account with the handle Eyeball Slicer. Quote, a liberal is someone who opposes every war except the current war and supports all civil rights movements except the one that's going on right now. End quote. That tweet has gotten more and more relevant every day since. If you were to pick a banner to hang above Western liberalism over the past 7 months, that banner would need to contain those words. It's been true of mainstream liberals for a very long time, but it encapsulates the response we've been seeing to Gaza with a special kind of perfection. Have you ever noticed how the spinmeisters responsible for normalizing our dystopian status quo use time as a psychological weapon?
I'm going to pause it here and play the rest of this later because she kind of goes into the second part, which is the weaponization of media. But what she says in this first part is a lot of what I kind of already, or some of the things that I spoke on, which is this idea that the description of what is acceptable in legal protest is just a new definition. And what they describe, if that were to be protest where you get a permit, where you don't disturb anybody, you don't break up anything, that's not a protest. The protest is supposed to disrupt. Now, remember when AOC said that? Where has she been with this repression, with this police attacks on the protests? Where has she been on this? They put out these generic videos like Bernie Sanders, just talking about the concept of protesting and not talking about the literal repression of protest that's happening. But we're going to move into now the weaponization of media against protesters. And we're going to finish. Is it going to go? There we go. Then we're going to finish out that video with Caitlin Johnstone. So let's now go to this part, is another Caitlin Johnstone video. But first, we're going to go. Actually, this is on YouTube. I got to go to. But so we're going to actually go to, there's two interviews that Ayman, his name is Ayman, Ayman, two interviews where he talks about, or two clips. I think it's from one episode, but there's two clips where he talks about the weaponization in some sort of angle, the weaponization of cable news and press against the protesters, which I was shocked to see this on MSNBC on a show called Amen. I think his name is, I forget his name. I'm going to look it up right now. But let me go find it first here. Everybody. Amen. Was it on here? Was it on MSNBC? I think it was on MSNBC. I think yeah. Let's go to MSNBC. So I'm after I find it, I'm gonna bring it up here. So give me a second here. Yeah. Okay. I know which ones they are. Let's start with. Hang on a second here. I'm talking to myself. Let's start with. Where is it? Okay, here it goes. Cancels, not that one. We're gonna start with a different one. Let's do them in order. So let's do them in, okay, so no, we're gonna do this other one first. Okay, so I found both of them, but this is the one we're gonna do first. Oops, not this one. My bad, everybody. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. This one. I had a completely different name written down. I watched too many videos earlier. So let's watch. Okay. So yeah, his name is, okay, I'll let him say his name, but it's spelled Ayman. And so I'll let him say his name, but let's bring the video on the screen. And this headline here you see, I'm going to be reading this later, but I do want to start with one of the videos. But the headline here says, U.S. corporate media complicit in demonizing pro-Palestinian protesters. And remember, we're now saying anti-genocide protesters. So let's bring this down, and then we're gonna come back to this. Actually, I can leave it up like that. But we're gonna go to a video. Let's bring that down. This first one is, like I said, this is from MSNBC, and it's entitled "The Media's Hypocritical Hysteria Over Campus Protests." And then we're gonna talk about the outside agitator and how this is being used. So these are both different like segments that I was slightly surprised. It's not like crazy surprised, but I was slightly surprised of this angle. Here is Amen, and let's listen. Pretty good segment. It's not the whole segment we're going to listen to, but a pretty good one.
Sawant University, Gaza's youngest university, was established in 2014 with a simple goal: ensuring poverty would not stand in the way of any Palestinian that wanted to pursue a college degree. Sawant was known for its towering main building and archway entrance, constructed as a love letter to Islamic architecture. The university was actually set to mark its 10th anniversary this year, and to celebrate that milestone, The school planned to open a public museum on campus, housing more than 3,000 artifacts, including relics from the Roman Empire to more modern pieces of Palestinian history and culture. However, Israel University and all of the history it housed within its walls has now been destroyed. On January 17th, the Israeli Defense Forces demolished the university's main building, reducing it to rubble in a matter of seconds. The Israeli military initially tried to justify this action, claiming that the campus had been, quote, used by Hamas for military activity and that there were concerns the group might use it to attack Israeli forces. But later, the Israeli military admitted there had been flaws in the operational process, including in the decision to destroy the entire building. However, Israel University was not alone in Gaza. According to an NBC News analysis, at least 5 of Gaza's 7 major universities have been destroyed or damaged since Israel began its bombardment of the Gaza Strip. And as Professor Rashid Khalidi, a historian at Columbia University, noted, quote, when you destroy these kinds of institutions, you are not fighting Hamas. You are fighting.
So what he's doing here, he's setting up his critique of the media protests, the hypocritical hysteria. He's pointing out this, what happened to the universities in Gaza is actually real damage that's happening to universities. What's happening in the United States is not that. That's basically what he's saying here, if you didn't catch on. But he's about to pivot and bring it back to the university protests here.
Fighting the existence of the Palestinians. You are fighting their capability to have memory, to have records, and to be educated. UN experts are now sounding the alarm, expressing concern that these attacks on universities in Gaza are part of a much larger effort to comprehensively destroy the Palestinian education system, an action known as scholasticide. For almost 7 months, the war has halted the studies of at least 88,000 students, according to the Palestinian Authority's Ministry of Higher Education. But if you've turned on television here in America, it is apparently American universities that are under attack.
Right.
As pro-Palestinian anti-war protests continue to spread to college campuses across the country, coverage of these demonstrations has dominated mainstream media. Here's just a really small glimpse at how these protesters have been described. Watch.
I'm reminded of January the 6th. That's what this looks like to me.
This might look like January 6th, but it's 1,000 times worse.
Charlottesville was a little peanut, and the hate wasn't the kind of hate that you have here.
Harkening back to the 1930s in Europe, and I do not say that lightly.
Keep marching for Hamas, kids. This is not what students bring to school.
Hamas is here.
Even the notion of an encampment is a physical threat.
We have a terrorist group marching in New York right now.
They're dumb and or unattractive. Take it to the bank.
They have been brainwashed by
They're
TikTok
dumb and
to believe
unattractive.
that Israel's actually committing a genocide.
What's happening on college campuses is rooted in anti-Semitism. They are embracing the rhetoric and the ideology of Hamas.
Understand. These two, this is a Democrat on the left and a Republican on the right. They're there to show bipartisan support for the repression and attacking these protesters' right to protest. Notice the over-the-top descriptions in this little montage that they played. Just astonishing. Let's rewind slightly and keep playing.
Ideology of Hamas.
Did that negotiating with terrorists work for them?
We are going to have fascism as a result of these protests.
We are going to have fascism as a result of these protests.
Crazy.
Absolute hysteria from the media. Outrage over protesters setting up tents, occupying buildings, or breaking windows as Gaza's entire education system lies in ruins. U.S. media have become obsessed with this manufactured idea of violence sweeping across American campuses, all while failing to cover the very real violence that has decimated an entire generation's access to education.
Like I said, I was surprised to hear this on MSNBC, that they let this through the cracks. Let's continue.
But the media isn't doing this alone. Here in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams has given them an assist, making himself, as the Nation's Jeet here describes, the public face of the nationwide campus crackdown on pro-Palestinian activism. At a press conference this week, Adams attempted to rationalize the NYPD's crackdown on Columbia University, claiming he's preventing young people from being, quote, radicalized by professionals. New York City Police Deputy Commissioner Tariq Shepard has gone in on the baseless fear-mongering as well, touting bike chains. Yeah, bike chains, literally bike chains sold at a discount by Columbia University as some kind of sinister weapon that has been brought in by outsiders. If you want to,
because you want to lock your bike up and prevent it from being stolen. This is just, I've never seen, it's been a long time. I haven't seen this over the top sort of rhetoric about protests like this. I've never seen it this crazy, to be just quite honest with you. This is crazy to me.
I want to talk about sinister weapons inflicting.
Let's move to the next video. That's all I wanted to get on that one. Let's move to the next video, because this next video talks about what he mentioned being radicalized by professionals, or what they're talking about, the outside agitator. This is another, and maybe it is the same episode where he does this, but here is another just surprising segment on MSNBC. This one is titled "Debunking the Outside Agitator Trope Amid Pro-Palestinian Campus Protests." Another surprising, it's not the whole clip, just like the last one.
As pro-Palestinian and anti-war protests spread to college campuses across the country, there was one phrase that kept popping up.
Outside agitators. Outside agitators.
Those outside agitators.
Them as outside agitators.
Outside agitators.
Outside agitators.
Outside agitators. Paid outside agitators.
Outside agitators.
In recent days, university administrators, law enforcement officials, politicians have all trotted out that familiar trope, the so-called outside agitator, accusing professional organizers or nefarious foreign actors of hijacking student-led protests and encouraging its participants to adopt more aggressive and violent tactics. Just yesterday, a bipartisan duo consisting of Congressman Republican Mike Lawler and Democrat Josh Gottheimer called on the FBI to investigate who's its shadowy figures. A similar sentiment was shared online by the NYPD chief of patrol, who accused a, quote, unknown entity of radicalizing our vulnerable students and taking advantage of their young minds. He urged his federal partners to, quote, follow the money. Now, we should be clear here. Some of the hundreds of people arrested at campuses across the country over the last few weeks
are Jewish,
have not been students, including at Columbia University, where city officials say 29% of those arrested last week had no connection to the school. But as the New York Times reports, there's little evidence that those so-called outsiders had any role in organizing or escalating the protests. In fact, many were arrested without ever having set foot on campus. And according to a review of police documents, only a small handful of the nearly 36 arrestees lack ties to the university had also participated in other protests around the country. Quite a blow to this professional protester narrative that is being pushed around by law enforcement. The Times examination also revealed that far more of the unaffiliated protesters had no such histories. Instead, those demonstrators said they arrived at Columbia in response to social media posts or word-of-mouth invites. And that includes Matthew Cavaletto, a 52-year-old computer programmer who's lived within a half a mile of Columbia University for most of his life. Cavaletto was arrested on the...
So these outside agitators end up being just people, local people to Columbia University in this example, who was outraged by what they were seeing on TV and came to support it. You mean like how normal protests grow? People see and they get outraged and then you're going to join the That's how normal protest is created. But you see the empire framing. They want to say anti-Semitism. They want to say violence, and they want to say outside agitator. China's paying for it. Russia's paying for this shit. It's never just American-born citizens disagree with the genocidal policy of their government. It's never that. Let's move to the next part here because I think I want to bring this down. We only got a couple of, I think, 2 more receipts and then we're out of here. End up being 3.5 hours instead of 3 hours. No, 3.5 hours. No, 3 hours. No, I started at 3:30. I'm sorry, 3:30 Eastern, and now it's 6:30. Okay, so it's just coming up on 3 hours. Just what I planned. I forgot. I didn't start at 12 my time, 3. I started a little bit later. All right. Now let's go back here and get to this article before we end with another Caitlin Johnstone video. And that's U.S. corporate media complicit in demonizing pro-Palestinian protesters. And I'm going to read a little bit from this article. Where is this from? Al Jazeera? Let me see. This is from Al Jazeera. This is their opinion. So you can look it up on Al Jazeera if you want it, this title. So let's read a little bit of this article. Make sure you hit that like button. 800 is the target. Here we go. The mainstream media's coverage of the campus encampments and the violence against them has exposed it as a central actor in the power elite that sustains Israel's war and simultaneously tries to silence Palestinians and criminalize anyone who supports them. Let me say that again, because that's a very important first part. The mainstream media coverage of the campus encampments and the violence against them has exposed mainstream media as a central actor in the power elite that sustains Israel's war and simultaneously tries to silence Palestinians and criminalize anyone who supports them. The mainstream media has widely condemned students and accused them of using hate speech and hate symbols. In the words of the U.S. president, endorsing terrorism, advocating for Israel's destruction, and resorting to anti-Semitic slurs and threatening and frightening Jewish students. Everywhere they look in the student protest encampment, the media oracles have been terrorists in training, anti-Semites at work, Jew haters being groomed, universities collapsing, and Nazi mobs in the making. Prominent TV hosts have unleashed passionate, and we're going to get to that, Dana Bash. Prominent TV hosts like Dana Bash have unleashed passionate, vicious diatribes against the students who have camped out to demand an end to America's role in Israel's genocide against Gaza and peace and justice for all in Palestine. MSNBC's Morning Joe show, reportedly a Biden favorite, is one glaring example of systematic biased TV programming that sometimes veers into incitement against the student protests and the university administrators. One of its hosts, Joe Scarborough, has claimed that students want to, quote, wipe out all Jews, end quote, quote again, they are Hamas on campuses, on college campuses, end quote. And they are, quote, not helping those of us who want to fight fascism in America, end quote. His co-host, Mika Brzezinski, and wife had said that the campus protests, quote, look like January 6th, end quote, referring to the riot by Donald Trump supporters on Capitol Hill in January 2021. Such unsustained allegations against the protesters are common to varying degrees across all of the major networks, including ABC, CNN, and NBC. A great novel experiment in political physics is underway in the United States as the unstoppable moral force of youth-led protests against Israel's genocidal war in Gaza runs into an immovable object of the American power elite support for it. So the student protests against the U.S. empire elite are going at it. The billionaire class that funds all of these campuses, all of these universities. In this clash, the two critical forces have been weaponized. The U.S. mainstream media that heavily disseminates Israeli propaganda and shapes many local, state, and national policies, and the scourge of anti-Semitism that has been unfairly used to demonize and silence Palestinians and shift attention away from the U.S.-enabled Israeli genocide in Gaza. Since Israel launched its assault on Gaza, President Biden's steadfast support for it has galvanized young Americans and pushed them to mobilize. They have formed decisive coalitions with Muslim and Arab Americans, Jews, Jewish, Black, and Hispanics, and Native communities, labor unions, and churches. They have given notice that if the U.S. continues to support the war, they will abandon Democratic candidate in the November election, which would likely be fatal for the party. And this is, and that last line speaks to what I have been saying. This is not just for 2024. They are losing people for a generation. It's not just 2024 we're talking about the Democrats losing. So that is the second to last item before we're out of here. We're going to go to a video, Caitlin Johnstone talking about the same thing. And this is Dana Bash and the ridiculousness of what Dana Bash did, and more broadly, what mainstream media is doing in the framing about the protests. Let's listen to Caitlin Johnstone once again, one of her latest pieces.
CNN compares campus protesters to Nazis in stunning propaganda segment. In one of the most appalling propaganda segments I have ever seen in my life, CNN's Dana Bash launched into a fire and brimstone sermon on Wednesday comparing anti-genocide university protesters to the brown shirts of Nazi Germany, doing so in defense of a fascistic police crackdown against those very same protesters. After playing a clip of Zionist activist Eli Civez theatrically claiming campus protesters at UCLA were blocking him from his classroom, Bash solemnly said, "Again, what you just saw is 2024 in Los Angeles, hearkening back to the 1930s in Europe, and I do not say that lightly. The fear among Jews in this country is palpable right now." According to journalist Jeremy Lindenfeld, who happens to be Jewish, Civez wasn't even denied access to his classroom, but was only denied access to the protesters' encampment, which he'd conveniently decided he wanted to walk through in order to get there. Dana Bash makes no mention of this, framing this instead as a terrifying attack on Jews, which could soon see them being loaded onto trains headed for extermination camps. Bash played a clip of New York City Mayor Eric Adams saying, "This is a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done," as though preventing the spread of radical political opinions is something a mayor is elected to do in the United States. They're calling for a ceasefire, says Bash. Well, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, the day before Hamas terrorists brutally murdered more than 1,000 people inside Israel and took hundreds more as hostages. This is a brazen propagandistic lie. Israeli forces had been routinely murdering Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank in the weeks and months preceding the October 7th attack. On October 6, 2023, The New Arab published an article titled, "2023 is Deadliest Year for Palestinian Children," says human rights groups, citing the Defense of Children International Palestine along with other sources. This hour, I'll speak to an American-Israeli family whose son is still held captive by Hamas since that horrifying day that brought us to this moment, said Bash, adding, "You don't hear the pro-Palestinian protesters talking about that. We will." Yes, such brave, up-punching journalistic integrity for you to talk about the Israeli hostages, Dana. Not like we haven't been hearing about them every single day from the imperial media for the last 7 months, while orders of magnitude more Palestinians are butchered by U.S.-supplied war machinery. At UCLA, pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian groups were attacking each other, hurling all kinds of objects, a wood pallet, fireworks, parking cones, even a scooter, Bash says. Another lie. The footage going around makes it abundantly clear the violence is being consistently instigated by Zionist counter-protesters, with videos of pro-Israel thugs launching fireworks and hurling bottles of chemicals into the encampment, ganging up on a protester on the ground and beating him with sticks, and tearing down parts of the encampment while screaming "Second Nakba." Later on in the same segment of Bash's own show, CNN's Stephanie Elam contradicts Bash's both sides lie by commenting on some of this footage, saying, "And you can see in the video, it looked like people from this side were breaking down the encampment from the pro-Palestinian side last night, throwing objects in there, as well as it looks like some sort of maybe pepper spray or something coming from the other side over here." And it should here be noted that Dana Bash gets her surname from her first husband, Jeremy Bash, who went on to serve as the chief of staff for both the CIA and the Pentagon. The woman is pure swamp. It should also be noted that CNN's own...
How many of you knew that? I'm going to go back just a little bit so you can hear that again. Listen, where she gets the name Bash from.
Staff for both the CIA and the Pentagon. The woman is...
My bad. I didn't go back far enough. Here.
And it should here be noted that Dana Bash gets her surname from her first husband, Jeremy Bash, who went on to serve as the chief of staff for both the CIA and the Pentagon.
Jeremy Bash is her former husband. I'm taking it. You think that's a coincidence? You think it's a coincidence that Andrea Mitchell's husband is Greenspan? You think it's a coincidence that her husband was the chief of staff for the CIA and Pentagon? You think that's a coincidence that she's in media? You think it's a coincidence that all these people who have ties to weapons manufacturers, all these people who have ties to the Zionist project, they're all throughout media. Where are the regular reporters at?
The woman is pure swamp. It should also be noted that CNN's own staff recently leaked to The Guardian that they have been pressured to report on the Gaza onslaught with an extreme pro-Israel bias, attributing the pressure to the network's new CEO, Mark Thompson. I, for one, think it's great that the imperial media are becoming so transparently obvious about their propagandistic nature, and I hope they keep exposing mainstream Westerners to the fact that the primary purpose of these outlets is to promote the information interests of the U.S. and its allies. Propaganda only works if you don't know what's happening to you. Right. So hopefully they keep going mask off like this for everyone to see.
That's Caitlin. And spot on. Now, I still haven't seen that segment with Dana Bash, and I've seen articles written about it, so I know it was terrible. Covered that. Yeah, I covered everything. So that is everything, and then that's from last week. Is there any video evidence I did not hit up on? Let me just scroll through here. Columbia University has canceled their main graduation ceremony due to campus protests. So they're canceling that. Oh, this one right here. We're going to cover that's Ellen Greenspan. We'll cover that another time. Let me look at this here. This is Richie Torres, the Zionist guy, with Noah Tishby. So let's watch this vomitous bullshit right here. Get your Dramamine out, okay? Oh God. Actually, let's see if I make this a segment here, a short segment. So this is, I think that's how you spell his name. Is it Richie Torres like that? Let's just keep it simple. Richie Torres goes full Zionist. I may have spelled it. Maybe it's 2 C's, 2 H's, 2 T's, or something like that. But let's listen to this and then comment.
At the end of the day, we share so many things. We share an origin story of exodus and slavery. We share being a marginalized community for so long.
She's saying we as if. Oh, God. So she's talking to Richie Torres, somebody who has African ancestry. We share a rich history of this and that. No, woman. You're from Ukraine. I'm just making this up. I don't know where she's from, but I know she's not indigenous to Palestine. But it is pretty disgusting to see a person with African ancestry sort of shake his head to this nonsense. Yeah, this is similar. It has nothing, not the Palestinians aren't similar, but you.
At the end of the day, we share so many things. We share an origin story of exodus and slavery. We share being a marginalized community for so long. We share the history of standing side by side with one another.
I'm Congressman Richie Torres, and I'm here with the incomparable Noah Tishby, who is my inspiration. I proudly call myself a Noah Tishby Democrat. And we're here to celebrate Noah's book, Uncomfortable Conversations with the Jew. And so, Noah, why did you write this book? I noticed.
Comfortable Conversations with the Jew. When she really means comfortable conversations with the Zionists. And you hear what he said? He is a Noah Tishby Democrat. That quite literally means he's a Zionist Democrat. That's what he's saying.
And we're here to celebrate Noah's book, Uncomfortable Conversations with the Jew. And so, Noah, why did you write this book? I noticed it's done in partnership with Emmanuel.
Yeah, Emmanuel Acho. So we wanted to write this book because we felt like a lot of people are not having conversations these days, not conversations that are difficult and not conversations that are in depth.
They want to be able to
conversations that have love. There's a schism between the Jewish and the Black community, which is heartbreaking. Because the partnership that the Jewish and the Black community has had in America is unparalleled. Like what we were able to do together throughout the generations. And the fact that there's a schism right now, as it's irking you, it's irking me and it's irking Emmanuel.
Are you optimistic that we can effectuate a revival of the Black-Jewish solidarity?
Oh my God, this is.
I'm very optimistic about that, and I know that people like you and like Emmanuel, like me, and like other people in the Jewish and Black community are not going to let it continue. And we're going to continue rebranding, recreating, reimagining this partnership between our communities.
When people ask me, how can you be both progressive and pro-Israel? I simply reply, how can you not be? Like the burden of proof lies with you. Because there's a long history of progressive Zionism embodied by the likes of Dr. King. And so you're reviving that tradition.
Thank you so much.
So my rule in life.
Truly disgusting. This guy is selling his Blackness to white power structure, and it's absolutely disgusting to see. I went blind on that one. That was disgusting. Good Lord. There's a schism. You mean the younger Black population under 50 is not down with a genocide? Is that what you mean? Y'all want us to be on board and lend our Blackness to this genocide? Pretty damn disgusting. But everybody, that's going to do it for today. I went a little bit longer than I planned, but I got everything in. I think I'm going to check out now. I'm going to play that Kung Kenny as a way to leave today as an outro. I told everybody, if you didn't know, I'm gonna have that new Kendrick Lamar song as my intro. It does not have copyright because it released it as, it's essentially a diss track. Is like a mixtape, and it's not, they don't charge for it, so you can use it and it's no charge. So I think I'm gonna use it, but I'm gonna end the show with this song. Oops. So let's bring it up. I'm gonna end the show with this song. And it's about a 4-minute song. So if you want to put something out there, if you want to type something, make sure you include the city, state, and or country you're in. And I'll put your comment up. Only those that include a city, state, or country in will be put up. While I play this track, and I think I'm going to put this up. It's only fitting to put this up here. Yes, this is today's episode, but for the sake of the song that we're going to be playing, I'm going to put the generic straight out of politics thing up, and this is the song I'm going to be using. Just the first 30 seconds, not the entire song. Is my intro, will be my intro to my show now, but I'm going to play the entire song because I like it. All right, guys, see you later. Psst. I see dead people.
Hey, Mustard on the beat, ho, depot, any rat nigga, he a freak though. Man down, call her Amber Lambs, tell him breathe, bro. Nail a nigga to the cross, he walk around like Tizo. What's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton? They in the street and hate me, fuck them all and they mama. How many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I'm finna pass on this body, I'm John Stockton. Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walking down whole time, I know he got some hoe on him. Pole on him, extort shit, bully the flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. To any bitch that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. They tell me Chubb's the only one that get your hand-me-downs. And party at the party playing with his nose now. And Baca got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boys, certified pedophiles. Wop, 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 wop. That fuck 'em up. Wop, 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 wop. I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. They not like us. 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 You think the Bay gon' let you disrespect Pop, nigga? I think that Oakland show gon' be your last stop, nigga. They cold foul, I don't know why you still pretending. What is the owl? Bird niggas and bird bitches, go. The audience not dumb, shape the stories how you want. Hey Drake, they're not slow. Rabbit hole is still deep, I can go further, I promise. Ain't there some B-rest that's for bitching? You Malibu most wanted, ain't no love boy, you ball boy, fish Gatorade or something. Since 2009, I had this bitch jumping. You niggas will get a wedgie, be flipped over your boxes, or over your foe. The other vaginal option, pussy. Nigga better straighten they posture. Got favors all up in contact. Might write this with a doctor. Tell a pop star quit hiding. Fuck a caption, won't action. No accident, I'm hands on. He fuck around, get polished. Fucked on Wayne Grower, he was in jail. That's conniving. Then get his face tatted like a bitch apologizing. I'm glad D-Rose came home. Y'all didn't deserve him neither. From Alondra down to Central. Nigga better not speak on Serena. And your homeboy needs subpoena. That predator moving flocks. That name gotta be registered and placed on neighborhood watch. I lean on you niggas like another line of walk. Yeah, it's all eyes on me and I'ma send it up the pot. Ay, put the roll label on me, I'ma get them dropped. Ay, sweet chin music. And I won't pass the ox. Ay, how many stocks do I really have in stock? Ay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 5. Ay, devil is a lie. Here, 69 God. Ay, freaky ass niggas need to stay their ass inside. Ay, roll their ass up like a fresh pack of Zod. Ay, city is back up. It's a must. We outside. Ay. They not like us. 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 Once upon a time, all of us was in chains. Homie still double down, calling us some slaves. Atlanta was the mecca, building railroads and trains. Bear with me for a second, let me put y'all on game. The settlers was using town folk to make them richer. Fast forward 2024, you got the same agenda. You run to Atlanta when you need a check balance. Let me break it down for you, this the real nigga challenge. You caught Future when you didn't see the club. Hey, what, little baby help you get your lingo up. What, 21 get your false street cred. Thug make you feel like you a slime in your head. Hey, what, Quavo said you can be from Northside. What, 2 Chainz say you good, but he lied. You run to Atlanta when you need a few dollars. No, you not a colleague, you a fucking colonizer. The family matter and the truth of the matter. It was God's plan to show y'all the liar. He a fan, he a fan, he a fan. He a fan, he a fan, he a freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Hey, 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 run for your life. Hey, 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 run for your life. Freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Freaky ass nigga, he a 69 God. Hey, 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 run for your life.